Thank you for waiting. Very excited for this show. This is going to be a show where each week I have a rotating guest on. And what's happened in the past is we drafted all these best ball teams, and then it's like, see you next summer. And that's not my style. I think each week we're going to have a best ball Mania 4 review show where we look at the leaderboard, we look at some of my top teams, we look at the guest top teams, we look at some of the community top teams, we go through what happened last week, we jump into a look ahead show. We're going to do it all. We got Justin Herzig as our first guest, the champion of Best Ball Mania 1 for Underdog. Let's rip this thing. All right. Anyone just tuning in today? We have Justin. He, again, won Best Ball Mania 1 on Underdog. I won Best Ball Mania 2, so we're forever connected. We both live in St. Pete. Today, he's rocking an absolute beautiful mustache that I am very envious of. My facial hair did not quite come in like that yet. I got a couple years. But, Justin, man, how about you tell the people, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. We are finally into the season. I mean, it kind of feels like the off season for us. I feel like our regular season was drafting for 3-4, however many months. But it is fun to finally watch those games, start getting the reactions. The not fun thing is the injuries. I know we always know it's going to happen. And like we were a little fortunate we didn't have too much leading into during most of the regular season. But like then we started having all these hammies that Rogers last night. That was rough, but I'm glad to be back though. Glad to have me.
Yeah, I mean it's a weird offseason in some ways, whereas like past years, what we had is more like torn ACLs by starting running backs in camp. This year, it was just like a bunch of pulled hamstrings, which are like maybe long term, maybe not. Then we had this Jonathan Taylor, whatever the hell's happening there. It's been a weird year, an unfortunate week 1 for quite a bit of players. Really sorry for anyone holding a big bag, and obviously most unfortunately the players such as J.K. Dobbins to go down. That's real tough for him. Just shows why running backs need to secure that bag while they can. But I'm gonna add my screen here, and we're gonna be talking about the leaderboard today. And I'm just gonna show the people first and foremost how to get to the regular season leaderboard. So either on your app or on your phone, you can click into your team here, and there's a tab here that says regular season. If you click the view the leaderboard button, what will pop up is what we're looking at here. And what this claims to only have been updated as far as Sunday night. So it claims to not include the Monday night data right now. I don't know if that's accurate or not, kind of looking at some of the teams. It's not the biggest deal if we don't have that game for week 1. Obviously, I think Underdog will have that going for future weeks. I think, shout out
scoring from last night. Not much scoring anyway, so.
Yeah. It was really only like Stephon Diggs who contributed and Breece Hall who did anything in fantasy. But shout out to Underdog. I think they're making the live sweat experience a lot better, where the leaderboard seemed to update a little bit more regularly. We got this great thing to look through. We can't quite see the teams, but the good news is we're looking at your teams, we're looking at my teams, and we got some community teams to kick off the show. So before we do that, though, I'm going to make a thread each week, which is going to simply be the top 12 scoring players each week in fantasy in half-point PPR, and then it will also have the top 12 on the season for future weeks. So let's kick it off here with quarterback, man. And, what sticks out to me about the quarterbacks this week in fantasy is the elite quarterbacks didn't do anything. Josh Allen, bad. Hurts, bad. Lamar, terrible. Mahomes was actually good, but his wideouts really let him down. Tua kicking it off here at 1. Mac Jones at 2. What stuck out to you about quarterbacks? Pretty flat overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tight ends and the quarterbacks all around, it was that, all across the season, it was, do we go elite? Do you go kind of with 3 later? I think the QBs is a bit more wonky. I think the tight end is actually like more predictive on, hey, this is a good strategy. But focus on QBs now. So Josh Allen went against a very, very good defense in the Jets. He's always struggled with them, or I don't know about always, but more recently he struggled with them. So not the most surprising. Not really that concerned there. Mahomes, no Kelsey. I think, hey, as long as there's no if Kelsey is out for an extended period of time, whether it's this week again or another injury, I think that's always going to be a concern for Mahomes. The rest of that wide receiver core just isn't enough to kind of survive. Let's see. If we think of the others, the Eagles one was very weird. Again, the weather all across the East Coast was pretty bad, so that obviously got to Burrow. We saw it a little. We'll get into the Patriots later on in the show and stuff, but Patriots ran tied for the most snaps on the week, 20 plus more than they averaged last year, which was bottom 5. That in a game that the Eagles still kind of can't do that much. I don't know. It's just kind of wonky and stuff. So my takeaway here is the elite QBs are still going to probably have these elite seasons. If I was redrafting, if I'm doing the drafting now, I'm still probably taking them around the same spot I was taking them before, which is early 3rd. But I don't know, Anthony Richardson's probably the most predictive one here, whereas he did what we were hoping he would do. He actually ran a little less because he didn't run as much in that second half, but they designed Shane Steichen and designed a great offense for him. Low average depth of target, low risk passes, wonky enough, but almost everything was to the right of the field. I don't know if that was a defensive strategy aspect or if that was just, hey, Anthony Richardson is better at throwing to his right. But
I think it was that
kind of takeaways.
Yeah, with Richardson too, a little bit of it was in garbage time, but you got to be real excited if you got Richardson. I got a lot of Richardson, between 20 and 40% based on the sites. He almost had another garbage time touchdown where he took some big hits in garbage time. I'm not too thrilled about that. I think he will be fine. Deshaun Watson coming in here at 21.7. He was pretty terrible, but again, that was weird weather. He was good from a rushing perspective. Herbert, again, he got a rushing touchdown, but he was not that great. I think Mahomes will be better. Tua.
The Herbert one, they were averaging 5.9 yards per carry. They didn't need him to throw it. Josh Kelly and Austin Eckler each had 16 carries, about 200 plus yards on the ground combined. They just didn't have a need for Herbert to throw it. I do think we will see, just more games where Herbert's actually getting work in a part of those touchdowns. Because I think his only touchdown was actually a rushing touchdown. Didn't throw for one? No, he did. Donald Parham had one. That's right.
Yeah, he got one to Parham.
That's right.
Jordan Love is one who I'm excited about. And part of that's the Bears defense. Didn't have Christian Watson. They got a legit D. They got a good O. Jordan Love, hot take here. How about for you? Will finish as a top X quarterback on the season.
Top 14.
Top 14?
But I think, so for me with Jordan Love, it comes down to, in the preseason, his offensive line was rated the number 1 offensive line in the preseason. Curious, was that going to actually lead into the season? It did. And I think he only had 3 only 3 QB hits on the entire game. It was very low. And so that line, if they can protect him, that's exactly what you want from a, not rookie, but basically his first year season. As those weapons get better, as Musgrave doesn't fall into,
Musgrave could have had 2 touchdowns.
So I'm bullish on that offense. Hopefully Aaron Jones is healthy, but I think that offensive line is exactly what a young quarterback needs. And if you look, his success where Jordan Love won was his efficiency on 3rd down. He just continued to move the chains, and a lot of that is because he had time behind that line.
Yeah, and just to point out to the people, Tua obviously at 28, separated a little bit, but if we're talking about BBM 4 finals, which we're going to talk about a little bit on the show, Tua's 28, not necessary to take down a 450 person final. Similar to when Joe Burrow, I think, had 35. And I won BBM 2 with 25 from Josh Allen, where it's the point is no one put up 40 this week, whereas the field was at 20. So not a lot of separation at quarterback. We see the QB 12, Jimmy G, at 16 points, Tua at 28. Running back and wide receiver, I think we'll try to look at together just because, they both play in the flex typically. We got Aaron Jones kicking it off at running back at 26 points. Roschon Johnson, the running back, 12 on the week in garbage time with 14.5 points. And then Tyreek Hill, an absolute monster, 39 points. And the wide receiver 12 was 16.1 points, which is good for the RB9 on the week. So wide receivers, a higher scoring position this week. Probably might see that most weeks. I don't know. What are your takeaways from this list? Obviously, the studs hit CMC, Eckler, Pollard, who could have had a much bigger game as well. And then we also see some zero running back guys, Kyron Williams, Josh Kelly, who could be in for a huge workload. I think Roschon Johnson will get more work even with the garbage time. At wide receiver, it's a lot of the guys we know, Tyreek, Diggs, Ridley. Ayuk comes up for a big game against that Steelers man defense. And then guys who were barely drafted, Kendrick Bourne, Puka Nacua, Romeo Dobbs I wasn't too high on. But, without Christian Watson, year 2 there. And then Rashid Shaheed, a guy I was big on, and just kind of taking advantage of that Titans secondary, I think. What are some of your takeaways here?
Yeah, so last one real quick. Romeo, he had 2 touchdowns. He basically had no usage. That was fluky. Not expecting much there, especially without Christian Watson. And Jaden Reed was basically nothing. They were slowly easing in. But at the top, so I think the most indicative ones are the things that I'm trying to kind of think, are these real or are they noise or are they actually real? And so Tyler Algier, I think that's extremely real. I think he's going to look at one of the best ball picks this year if they continue, if he stays healthy. I'm not expecting Bijan to just completely massively overtake from a role standpoint. Arthur Smith wants to run the ball. That's what he's going to do. And Tyler Algier, if he actually is going to get the majority of the goal line work, even half of it, which he's a little bigger back, it wouldn't be shocking. He's actually pretty good there. That's a really valuable role.
Bijan, would you start Algier and manage? Because I think he's a really strong pick for best ball. He's going to get those. I don't think he's going to get 100% of the red zone carries. We saw Bijan get that red zone target. It almost seems like Arthur Smith just kind of wants to be the smartest guy in the room. Algier obviously very good in short yardage. Big dude. He had that one touchdown where he's totally stuffed. It's clearly a team where we identified they want to run the ball. We know that about them. We should have probably been higher on Algier as a community, just realizing that both these guys are going to get their work. And Bijan could have had 50 points if not for Algier this game. Yeah. Absurdly good.
So 2 thoughts there. One is pay attention to matchups. Falcons won this game. Falcons going against Panthers, I think they're actually favored in it. They have the second easiest schedule this year. So games that they are ahead, we're going to see more Tyler Algier. Games that they're behind, we will probably see more Bijan as that pass catching role. So if you're asking me with regards would I start him, I think that's important consideration is this a game we expect him to be competitive and winning? Now, granted, last year they were down 2 touchdowns and they were still running the ball. So do not tempt Arthur Smith. Even in a game that's negative game script, they still might be running. The second is Cordero Patterson was not healthy, was not playing. When he's back, I expect him to be getting some of this work as well. That turning into a 3-headed backfield, that's not good. Now,
what is the Joker role to you? Is that slot wide receiver? Is that
I think he's still going to be a running back. I just think they're going to use him. Yeah, I think that he's still going to be a running back type. We've seen him at wide receiver as well. So I think maybe they actually line him up out wide a little more. Does he actually steal some of Bijan's pass catching role? Unfortunately, I think a small amount, but yes. And then I think he also steals some of the goal line work because he was actually pretty good there the past 2 years. So if Cordero's healthy, I'm a little more concerned about the Algier role. If it's just those 2, no, I think Algier, you're starting him in almost every week.
Yeah, Bijan just looked absolutely electric. It was against a rookie quarterback for the Panthers. Let's talk about Kyron Williams, man, who just looks like the Rams starter, point blank period. Cam Akers, we're going to go into some usage reports here, but Cam Akers got a lot of his work in garbage time. This is one where I got on as soon as I heard there were rumblings in camp that he was I thought he was going to be this kind of like James White, Theo Riddick type, catching passes. That's what I was hearing in camp. And then that Cam Akers has the Achilles injury. He's fighting with the coaches half the weeks. it turned out a lot more than that. He was just like strictly the goal line back. Again, Cam Akers, when the Rams were blowing out the Seahawks in the second half after they lost both their tackles, just looks like a league winner type at running back. I don't think he's going to get 2 touchdowns every week, but I think he's a real excited guy to have. Kelly, you're real excited about, especially because Eckler already banged up. Who are some other running backs that stood out to you, either on this list, not on this list? Aaron Jones, we'll see what happens with the hamstring injury. Maybe he was too cheap because A.J. Dillon looked awful.
A.J. Dillon did. And so A.J. Dillon, I think, is my highest owned running back for this year. And that was more a bet on, again, this offensive line being really strong, them wanting to lean on that run game. And yeah, from an actual efficiency standpoint, A.J. Dillon looked horrible, but also like he's still young. So it doesn't make sense that he would have like fallen off a cliff. I'm willing to say that like, hey, this was just a weird efficiency game for him. Because, we've seen 2 years ago, A.J. Dillon was actually used in the passing game too. So if Aaron Jones misses a game, I'll be very interested to see what A.J. Dillon, I don't know, his role and efficiency are, but I'm still bullish on kind of both Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, just because, again, that offensive line.
And they get the Vikings week 17. Like that's a game that you want exposure to, I think.
Yeah. The Kyren and Kelly, I love them both. I've got a decent amount of my bags for them for 18th round and definitely DraftKings 20th round picks. Did not expect this out of Kyren, but we knew when, hey, neither Kyren nor Akers played any of the preseason games. We knew that they'd, we expect them both to have roles. Little did we know Cam Akers is the one who actually doesn't have the largest role. I'm in full camp that like, hey, they like Kyren. They liked him last year. Schefter had that tweet that he started Kyren last year and that Kyren was going to be the primary workhorse until he got hurt. And I think like the opening kickoff or something.
Yeah, it was the opening kickoff. It was weird.
Yeah. So, but I think Kyren's going to be the guy there. Now, how valuable is that role going to be? I don't know. Rams completely shocked me yesterday, or, on Sunday. But like, I thought they were going to be really bad this year. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll jump into that because Stafford looks legit. Let's go to wide receiver here. Tyreek Hill, 39 points. If drafts were done today, like something I toyed around with is like whoever has the highest weekly ceiling should be probably the 101. And I'm sorry, like Tyreek Hill could do things no one else in the league can. I understand Justin Jefferson's great. I think Chase's weekly ceiling is absurd as long as Burrow is better than he was. But I mean, Tyreek Hill with the speed, what is his weekly ceiling at? Like a true ceiling outcome? Probably like 80 points or something absurd.
No. We'll give him 55.
I think you flashed up the 2. He would be your 102 ahead of Chase, I assume.
Yeah.
And then
still one.
Let me ask you a question. Tyreek Hill, will he be on the regular season winner, the champion, the guy who's going to take down 500K this year?
Probably not.
No. Okay. I mean, it's week 1.
Still high draft capital. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the Chargers defense would be better than it was. It came out as like so bad. Hard to say how much of that is McDaniel's genius and Dolphins genius versus what have you. Anything else you want to say about these wide receivers here?
Yeah, but just touch on like that. I mean, we're 1 out of 12. He's a first rounder, so you're talking 1 out of 12. Maybe you can get rid of Cooper Kupp or something, or 1 out of 11. Maybe you double that chance and you say instead of it being 9%, he's actually like 2x, 3x. You're still
probably Kelsey too. Missing a game is like not nothing.
So, but I'm just saying, like, so maybe you can get him up to like 25, 30% likelihood. But for him to have like me to say like, hey, it's more likely he's on one of those, way too early in the season. If it's just from an injury risk aspect, him getting hurt versus like everyone, I don't know. Like, yeah. So I would say like he's the favorite right now, but yeah. And then from a redraft, Justin Jefferson, I think like Justin Jefferson's just going to be a bit more predictable. I still think there's a chance that defenses, like it's a small chance, but it's something that we at least had consideration is, can defenses figure out this offense that just runs through, last year was so much through Waddle and Tyreek Hill. This year, though, Tyreek Hill, he had a 30%, 4% target share 2 days ago. Last year, he had a 32%. So, like, that's not actually that abnormal for him. We expect that to continue. What was odd was Jalen Waddle had like an 11 or 12%, which used to be like a 20-some. You've got Durham Smythe. You've got
River Rock.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that's his name. Craycroft?
River Craycraft. I don't know. River Craycraft,
Crackrock's a little too busy up in New York.
Yeah,
getting
I'm
us
mixing
horses.
that up. No, but there were other Dolphin
Niner.
guys to your points, which is a little concerning for Waddle. Waddle's going to be fine. I mean, he's too fast. He's too good. Teams might say beat us with Waddle instead of Tyreek. We'll see. It's exciting that they get the Patriots defense, who looked good. Not necessarily, their defense is good. We'll see how they choose to defend these Dolphins in a division matchup. Ayuk here comes off for a big game. He's a guy I played a lot in like daily stuff where I just thought like the Steelers just play this man D, and Ayuk's a grown ass man. I don't think he's not like it's going to be Kittle some weeks. It's going to be CMC. I mean, CMC was this week as well. It's going to be Debo some weeks. Myers looked absolutely electric. Unfortunately, got a concussion. Just really condensed there in the Raiders. I saw you tweeting about that.
Yeah, that was. Let's touch on that real quick. Like that was insane. I think it was 73% of the targets, 19 of 26, went to Devontae and Jacoby Myers. After that, it was Josh Jacobs with 3, and then no one else had more than 1. And then not to mention, like from a next gen stats wise, like Jimmy Garoppolo was the most, I think, I don't know, was efficient or like just for.
He's always the best in the advanced stats.
Crazy, yeah. Now Jacoby Myers, unfortunately, alluded to that concussion. Very sad. Does Renfro actually now move into that? I'm really not sure, but yeah, Jacoby and Devontae could be really fun DFS like combos for this year if Jacoby can get healthy. The Ayuk, I completely agree with you. I was off of Ayuk. I don't have that much of him, unfortunately. But I do think
I got more in high stakes stuff. I got on him a little bit later in the season where like I was hitting him in the 5th round. I don't have as much in BBM, just kind of like it depends on when you actually did your drafts, as far as like players you were drafting. On another topic on that, I mean, Ridley just looked amazing, right? Like it was weird his usage too. He got like all his fantasy points in the first half and then like no points in the second half in a game where the Jags were losing at a point to the Colts. Puka Nacua, though, we got to talk about
with the Jaguars. What was most interesting to me is they only threw to 3 wide receivers. So even though Christian Kirk only went, I think it was 1 catch on 3 targets for 9 yards, I'm expecting that Calvin remains the alpha, and then Zay and Christian Kirk have some kind of offsetting spike weeks. I'm at least optimistic on that aspect because they didn't throw to any of the wide receivers besides those core 3.
Yeah, Kirk's not going to be a 0. Like Kirk will have some weeks. It's not great for manage maybe that he wasn't playing in all the 2 wide receiver sets, but he's going to have his weeks. On that front too, like ETN, you're just excited with his explosiveness. He looked real great there. And the Ram stuff, I was taking a lot of Tutu to end. I'm still excited about that. Tutu, 8 catches, 100 yards. I was like taking random stabs of Puka, not as much a priority target. He clearly was like the Cooper Kupp of the offense where 15 targets you simply cannot shrug off as a rookie. He also, I saw a picture of him in like a Grateful Dead t-shirt. We know Cooper Kupp's a Grateful Dead guy.
It wasn't a Grateful Dead t-shirt. Let's be clear. It was a corporate America. I think it was a Nike shirt that was trying to co-opt the Grateful Dead movement. We cannot allow corporate America to take our last shred of just good music.
Okay. Maybe it wasn't exactly that. Justin's got more insight, but I mean, let's talk about Puka. One thing we cannot rule out is that Kupp might not play. Like, I think we all think that Kupp's going to play week 5, week 6. That's not guaranteed. So let's ask you, where would you draft Puka today if you could go back in best ball land? And what do you think happens to the Rams if Kupp returns? To me, I think Van Jefferson hits the bench because I think Tutu's role's pretty safe. Small guy, burner. Like, he's been kind of just like unlucky with injuries in the past couple of years where he was like a total 0 in the past couple of years, but like was a deep threat, moved the chains for a little bit for them. I think Puka's too good to hit the bench now, and I think Van Jefferson is frankly not good. So what are your thoughts on the Rams and those guys?
All right, so I'm going to read, I think this was Zerline's take on Puka, and it is, he's an athletic wideout lacking the twitch or speed to attack NFL man coverage at a successful rate. The ball skills and competitive nature brings the field, give him a fighting chance to make a roster. He might need to be used as possession wide receiver operating from the slot, whereas ball winning and size can work in his favor. He's sneaky talented with the ball in his hands, so jet sweep work in the pros could be an option. I think that touches on, even though like obviously he outperformed that kind of prediction, I think it is very accurate that he plays very well in the Cooper Kupp role. He needs to be playing out of the slot. If you put Puka outside, I think the major concern on the tape is that he can't win in that situation. So he's one of the most interesting scenarios where if Cooper Kupp doesn't play at all this year, Puka could legit be like a top 10, top 15 wide receiver.
Yeah.
But if Cooper Kupp plays, Puka may not see the field. And Cooper Kupp might just literally take that entire role back and then put Tutu and Jefferson and Van Jefferson on the outside. I think from like a fantasy wise, it's like, oh, obviously this guy's more talented. Tutu has a role. Just get rid of Van Jefferson. But I think from like a football X's and O's, and it was Silva who was talking about this in our Slack, like he also thinks that like Puka's biggest risk is if Cooper Kupp comes back, does he just not see the field?
I think he would see the field like kind of as like the Robert Woods, but the bigger concern to me would just be like if Kupp is going to have 15 targets and Puka has 6, you know? Because no, I agree with you. My first thought was the same, where it's like, I think, but Van Jefferson's role is kind of just like run, win sprints, clear out dudes, right? Like he's not there to catch passes. Puka, to his credit, because I had kind of heard the like Debo comps or like, oh, he's a yard after catch guy. To his credit, though, he did have like separation where he could have gotten like a 40-yard bomb if Stafford had hit him. The big thing is that Stafford looked very good. And now there's systematic risk there too, where Stafford needs to hold up. The O-line needs to hold up. The Seahawks defense might just be awful, you know? We don't have the Hayden Winks report on how many times a player was drafted in BBM4 yet, but it will be interesting to see how many.
Very low. Very low.
I got one. I got one Puka share in BBM4.
The last week of drafting, I went very hard on Puka. But that is to say, like, I still only probably did 5 to 10 drafts. I'll look right now. I know on DraftKings. On DraftKings, I think I got like 10 to 15 shares of him in the last week.
It's an underdog show, so I don't know what you're talking about, but
that. Drafters too. It's just 20 rounds or whatever. But let me look to see if I got any of him in the Best Ball Mania. My guess is I probably got like 2 or 3.
I got one share like randomly in July or something. Rashid Shaheed.
I got one.
I think Rashid Shaheed looked real good. Is good. You know, I think the Titans secondary is awful. It's a team we want to play guys like Rashid Shaheed against. I think the biggest thing for him is he has contingent upside where if something happens to Michael Thomas, who was like fine, he just gets even more work. He was kind of like a priority guy for me. Like one of the last wide receivers I could see spiking. It was like I'd go like him and then Slayton. Slayton obviously didn't look great, but feel good about the Shaheed bags. Let's move on to tight end here. Any week Hunter Henry's the tight end one with 14.1 half-point PPR points. Not a great week here. Musgrave could have had a huge week with 2 touchdowns. Obviously, we did not get Kelsey. We did not get Andrews. Blake Bell is on this list. Donald Parham is on this list. Hayden Hurst is the tight end too. TJ Hawkinson, one of the only elite tight ends who played, 7.5 points. Anything you want to say here?
Yeah, I think the noteworthy thing here is it's not that, who finished at the very top, because if you literally had anyone, you probably got between like at least 4 to 6 points or something. Yeah. So you didn't miss out much on like the differentiation between Hunter and Henry. But the fact that if you didn't spend draft capital, you could still have done virtually nothing and finished with this. Hayden Hurst, Hunter Henry, Dawson Knox, like those are my highest owned tight ends because I took such a strong late tight end strategy this year. And the truth is, like, these are the type of weeks where if this is week 17 in the playoffs, the teams who drafted those elite ones, like, they're not effed, but like they just really missed out. And then if there's enough of these type of weeks throughout the regular season, then your advance rates just continue to kind of increase as you're basically taking a step above all the ones who invested early on that tight end. But yes, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, like we've seen the injury aspects. They're going to come back. We'll see what happens. But again, tight
It
end
kind of
also
talks to the value of those two guys, like weeks like this, where it's like if Kelsey puts up 18, I mean, that's and is dependable. I will say that like in the fantasy playoffs the past couple of years, we have seen the elite guy, a bunch of tight ends have good games. That's just kind of like sampling bias where, a lot of weeks do look like this to your point, where like that's why late round tight end from an advance rate perspective is always typically solid. But, those weeks where TJ Hawkinson does have 30, like if that happened this week, like you can just show how valuable a guy with that type of ceiling can be. Where, if a guy puts up 30 and the tight end, 4 through 12 is 8 to 6 points, like you're really separating from those teams. Because usually like whatever, the wide receiver 12 was 16 points, the wide receiver 20 was probably like 13 or something like that,
Yeah. 30 is a ton for underdog scoring though.
Yeah.
I think
30 is whatever, 25, 20.
Yeah. Right. Because I mean, if you like, even if 20 would basically be if you had 2 touchdowns, that's 12. And then you went 6 for 60, that's 9, that's 21. So 6, 60, and 2 is, that's a 21 point day. That's a lot. That's really good. It also, not talking about other sites, but when you have full PPR, you have bonuses of 100-yard. That's where those tight ends can truly separate and why it sometimes makes sense to invest a little more in there.
Absolutely. Guys, if for some reason you're not up on Underdog Fantasy and you want to try all this stuff we're talking about, promo code Chesleyan, get on there. All right, man, let's jump into the teams, what the people want to look at. We're going to alternate your highest scoring, my highest scoring. We're going to look at our top 3. I pulled 3 from the community, both from my Discord. The link to join that is below, and a Twitter thread that I did earlier today. So make sure you join that Discord. I notify people when I go on streams. And, again, this is where I pulled a lot of the highest scoring teams this week. But first off, we got your team here with 152.4 points. If I pull back up the leaderboard, don't know why I closed that. One moment here. We can actually look this up. We can look up Justin's team here. It's something like whatever.
4,500th place.
Yeah. It is Justin Herzig. It is around like 4.5K. All right. So Justin, walk us through this team for the people.
Okay. So Josh Allen, Brock Purdy, feel pretty good about that from a just QB standpoint. Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Rashad White, Alvin Kamara, Jerick McKinnon. So probably went running back, and then Josh Allen in the third as my structure. I don't know. Rashad White, one of the least efficient games we've ever seen. It is what it is.
We're gonna pull up a tweet in a second later in the show about Rashad White, but he at least got 100% of the red zone work.
There you go. I'm bullish on Alvin Kamara. I think Jamal Williams showed he had no juice left. For here, why this team showed up was like Brandon Ayuk. I have very, very little Brandon Ayuk, unfortunately, for my bags. But yeah, he and then Jacoby Myers, who I've got a lot of, were very strong for this. Basically 3 late tight end strategy paid off well with that Hunter Henry. I think Dawson Knox, I'm still bullish on. I think he and Kincaid are going to have similar roles throughout the year. So be able to get Dawson Knox in the 16th round was pretty strong. I think this team has a decent chance. Like this was all done without Josh Allen doing anything. Not like that.
Yeah, the only real zero sticking out is Shakir's not a pure zero. He's got contingent upside, but he's looking like a zero now.
Gesicki too. Yeah.
Gesicki also maybe a zero, which you can survive some zeros. Like
Gesicki, I feel a little better about because he might have some touchdowns. He'll probably actually have some mixed in just like that. And for this type of tight end build, what I'm counting on with this is just give me enough to advance and give me some points to playoffs.
I think the thing that you should be most excited about this team is that it does not have Tyreek Hill. And most of the, if you're trying to play for the regular season points, most of the teams obviously have Tyreek Hill's 39 points. So to have a team in the mix where the leaderboard, the top team right now is
192,
190. to have a team within 40 without having Tyreek obviously has CMC's big day. Feels pretty good. Derrick Henry this pick doesn't feel the greatest, but the running backs feel nice. I think better days will be ahead for Jerick McKinnon, especially they might need to if the wide receivers are brutal. And the wide receivers you feel real good about. Pittman got a lot of targets. Nico got a lot of air yards and targets. Better days will be there. Myers obviously not going to play this week, but feels good. We'll see on Gallup. Like that game was so weird. The Cowboys Giants.
Nothing to learn there. I mean, hey, and some might say that Derrick Henry was the worst second round pick you could have had this year. We'll see if somebody.
We'll get to that. All right, closing out yours. My top team is 2 points higher, 154 points. It's a Herbert Tua team with Pollard, Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, Kendre Miller, who, again, to your point about Jamal looking not great, feel good about having Kendre. We'll see when he does play. Would have been nice if he got that chance to audition. Jeff Wilson, I think he will play this year. We'll see when it's like week 5, week 6, week 7. Gainwell looking like the RB1 in Philly. He's a little banged up right now, though, so feel good at running back. Also got Tyreek, Mike Williams, Ayuk, Deontay Johnson, OBJ, Nico, Isaiah Hodgins, a rare Braxton Berrios for, random touchdown in the playoffs. Dalton Schultz and Everett. I mean, Schultz ran a bunch of routes. We'll look at that. Everett shared the field a little bit more with Parham. We'll see how much of that was like the Mike Williams concussion thing. Mike Williams obviously did nothing. Obviously, the strength of Tyreek and Ayuk pulling this team up. Feel real good about. So this team went Tyreek, Pollard, Josh Jacobs. You could occasionally get the Tyreek Pollard combo middle of the season to early of the season. So this was like a middle of the season team.
Do you have a date on it? I would have guessed that this was an early one. How late you grabbed kind of Kenneth Gainwell too, but
I dated all mine, so I can tell you.
While you're looking for it, I'll make a comment on Mike Williams too. I think one very bullish news on Mike Williams is how much he was used in the slot. He increased from using, I think, around like 15% in previous years to it was almost around 50% this week. I think it was 45% in the slot. So if that kind of usage is very valuable for a Mike Williams type role. And again,
this was drafted May 18th.
Yeah.
So very early. I labeled it. It's team 55 of mine, May 18th night. So usually when I write night, it means it's like real night, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m.
That Kenneth Gainwell value was definitely what tipped me. Like getting that after Jeff Wilson and Kendre Miller meant that he was going really late.
Yeah. And we'll see the Giants guys better days ahead. OBJ at least was on the field compared to Bateman. Deontay Johnson, hamstring injury.
Yeah, that's rough.
It feels like this team could use a third tight end. I think I was a little bit more bullish on Schultz early, but it'll be fine.
Instead of Berrios. Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, Berrios 2 touchdowns week 17 and we're lit. All right. Your second team, a big jump down.
Yeah. No, it's because of not having much Ayuk. And so if you didn't that's the guy who pushed all these teams forward because you either had Tyreek or you had McCaffrey or you had Eckler. You couldn't combine those. Where you could combine is getting Jacoby and Ayuk. And so here, I've got Tyreek and Jacoby, but no Ayuk. My running backs, I don't have any running back points above 10 here. So
that's really the thing with this team.
Yeah, this must have been a very late, or I don't know. I'm trying to think when I drafted Pierre Strong because I don't have many of those. But looking at that, so
yeah, he was kind of like an early guy. It was probably early.
I don't draft many run. This
Zay Flowers was pretty late too. You had Zay Flowers after Treylon.
That's true. Yeah, and then let's see what I have at the tight end position at the end. Taysom, Dawson Knox, and Hayden Hurst. There you go. I mean, I love these 3 late tight ends. You'll see a bunch of those out of my portfolio.
A quarterback to some.
I think this team's fine. I don't know.
Better days ahead for Saquon.
The running backs I'm not happy with. Another Josh Allen.
Ken Walker looked good.
Mike Evans got 32% target share. The wide receivers are pretty strong here now that I look at it. Jacoby, Zay Jones, Zay Flowers, Mike Evans, Michael. I like these wide receivers a lot. Hit some good value based off what we can see now.
The wide receiver room looks good. I don't know. Like Gibson is either going to get sent to the shadow realm for that fumble in the red zone. I started the season drafting Gibson when he was in the 130s, and I was not drafting B-Rob. Once they flipped, I stopped drafting Gibson and drafted a lot of B-Rob. Towards the end, I was like confident he was the RB1. He didn't exactly look great by any means, but I think the usage will be there. In trailing game scripts, the question is with Gibson, like what happens in trailing game scripts? Does he get all his targets there?
Brian Robinson had the most targets routes run than any game last year. I think he like pretty much doubled his average or something. Yeah, I'm very bullish on Brian Robinson. I think if you were redrafting today, he's going before like Isaiah Pacheco. He's going near that kind of mid 70s, late 70s. So,
we'll see how I was like. Almost losing to the Cardinals, not great sign for the Commanders.
Not good. Yeah.
No. My second highest scoring team is one I'm actually more excited for than my first one because, again, this one does not have Tyreek either. So this is a Trevor Gino team. This is ETN occasionally fell to the 4-5 turn, and this is a 4-5 turn ETN team as an anchor with Swift, who – I think better days ahead are for him, especially with Gainwell banged up. Herbert, we'll see. Algier, Damian Harris, Chris Evans, who like at least is playing this year. Like it seems like him and Travion are sharing the third down role. Maybe that's just because Travion was banged up and like Chris Evans will hit the bench more. Sean Tucker, who, obviously this was a late team drafting Sean Tucker. It's kind of good news. Rashad Wright wasn't great, but we'll see how good that offense is. And then wide receiver, went fragile here with only 6, depending on the quality of the top guys with Jefferson, Ridley, Metcalf, Ayuk, Addison, and Mingo. Feel good about the top 5 guys. Mingo, he's a rookie. Hopefully will be better. But, really depends on the strength of these guys. That's kind of how I did it when I went wide receiver heavy. And then Kincaid, Musgrave, Mayer, tight end group I feel great about. Everyone wants to know what I have to say about Kincaid, I'm sure. I have 50% Kincaid. I think Josh Allen won't play the Jets defense every week. He was running a lot of routes like down the field. So I think he'll have some big games. Knox is going to have some games too. He's a little bit different though. He's like catch a tight end screen, yard after the catch type guy, get some red zone looks. Kincaid was running like legit seam routes, wide open sometimes. Not the best game from Josh Allen.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think all things equal, promising thing for Dalton Kincaid. What was interesting is how low his average depth of target was, where I think Knox was something around like 7 yards and Kincaid's was something like 1.5 yards.
Like 2.6 or something bad. Yeah.
There you go. I looked like middle of the game or something. But yeah, what you're saying, though, is true because when I was watching it, I'm like, Kincaid's running downfield. I remember one play I saw like Kincaid 30, 40 yards, middle of the field, looked open.
And moving.
And then, but like Knox somehow had the larger. I mean, so I think that's a little wonkiness. But again, I think Knox is still a great value for where he was. And I think Kincaid going in that kind of 115 range is still a good pick.
Yeah. And later at points, like, when Pat and I had that big Kincaid discussion, he had fallen to like the 130s, 140s. That's where I was like, this is jump ship. Musgrave, real excited about Musgrave. I have a ton of him on other sites. I don't know how I didn't get more here, probably because I have a lot of Hawkinson. Mayer was a zero burger. I think he's going to come on. Like, he's going to be more of a traditional rookie where later in the season, hopefully, we get some games, That
concentrated target tree we got there is scary for everyone that's not Jacoby Myers or Devontae. Jacoby with this injury.
I mean, with Myers out of there,
it's going to be interesting what happens. Exactly.
Yeah, because Renfro got 0 targets, and like I think I read Run Rumor they want to like get rid of him. So I'm excited for him as far as like a like they wanted to trade him or something. I'm excited to see how Mayer comes along. Your third team here and the last team we're looking at from you. Take it away.
Tua, Rich, love it.
Fun combo.
This must have been, let's see, what do we think my draft order was? Probably Tyreek Hill in the fifth, Tyreek Hill with picks.
Tyreek, Taylor, Smith.
Yeah, so I'm saying Tyreek Hill, Devonta Smith, and then probably Jonathan Taylor, like middle of the third. So Obviously,
that's not great to see, but I know
this team's dead. I'm looking at it now. This team's dead. Jonathan Taylor and J.K. Dobbins.
Well, Jonathan Taylor though, like I don't know.
I know,
He said he could. You see, rumors today he could play. I think that maybe because the Colts didn't look that bad.
This is going to be a really difficult team to advance when Jerick McKinnon is a late game one. I don't know. Like maybe Gainwell's not even going to be healthy this week.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to spend.
I mean, we'll see. You might just score enough with Tyreek to like float by where like Taylor comes back, and if Gainwell and McKinnon are doing stuff, I mean, Jerome Ford got like 15 carries. I think
he did
for like 40 yards, but he got them.
If this team can survive to a week 5 with Jonathan Taylor coming back, as Brock is kind of saying out in the chat, like, yeah, it's got a chance, but it's going to be rough the next couple weeks.
It's dead for the total points champion, but you could make
every team is basically dead for that. That's okay.
My third team was actually streamed. It was Team 101, I think. So you can go back and watch this stream. It's a Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence team. Aaron Jones, Swift, Charbonnet, who was not great, but I think better days will be ahead for him, as the season progresses. Take Bigsby, who was brutally bad, but got the red zone work. Jerome Ford, Kyron Williams, the late round hammer. Tyreek, Ridley, Kirk, Zay Jones, and Ingram. So just grabbing all of the Jags concentrated pass game weapons. Feels good. Like that's going to produce some good weeks. This is just like the bet on Trevor game. DJ Chark, who did not play. Don Peoples-Jones, who did play but wasn't great. Claypool, who was giving like half-assed effort out there. Claypool and Shakir feel zero-ish, more Shakir than Claypool. At least he was like playing. Ingram and Kincaid to correlate with the quarterbacks. It's just a fun team. We'll see how the running backs go with Swift. We'll jump it. We'll talk about that later. But fun team just to have the full Jags pass game weapons.
If this can get to the playoffs, I like it a lot. There's going to be a decent amount of zeros, unfortunately, as you like the Claypool, the Shakir, and then even the running backs. If Aaron Jones is hurt, Charbonnet.
Yeah, it puts a lot of stress on like Kyron hitting the lineup most weeks. The nice thing about Kyron is he's not a 100% drafted guy.
Oh yeah. No, if this team gets the playoffs, I think it's a really strong team because I like the Jacksonville overstack with the other guys.
Yeah. All right, let's look at the 3 community teams before we go quickly game by game from last week. This is the top team that was sent to me. I believe he said it is 10th on the leaderboard.
Kyle first.
Yeah. Kyle Seymour here. There you go. Not a liar. He is 10th overall in the whole contest. I'm going to work on Underdog sending me the top 3 teams, guys, in the future. We'll see if they have the ability to do that. But shout out to Kyle for showing us his awesome team here. It's Tua, Kyler Murray, Matt Stafford, Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones, Pacheco, Herbert, Chuba Hubbard, Tyreek, Ridley, Ayuk, Pittman. I think this is like the combo you had on one team. Van Jefferson, Rondale, Tank Dell, Chase Claypool. So like kind of zero-ish other than the top 4 guys. Goddard and Likely, the random Likely guy, rough. If he got anything at tight end here, he would be like second on the leaderboard. Pretty nice team. We'll see how it goes. It feels nice to have Pollard, Tyreek, Ridley combo, I think.
Little too top heavy with those wide receivers.
Yeah, it's just going to depend on the strength of these 4. But when you have 4 guys who are getting 10-ish targets each week, you can make some noise. And better days will be ahead for Goddard. I thought Likely was like a bad play in DFS land, where it's like last year he competed with no one, and now he's competed with like Zay Flowers and the wideouts. But it's a 1-week sample too.
It was a bad tourney play, good cash play.
Yeah. The second team here, 170 points from Titletown. This is the guy who actually won the Drafters Championship last year. Walk us through his team, Justin.
Tua, love Jimmy. I'm fine with that as a pretty decent QB room. Aaron Jones, Isaiah Pacheco, Dave Montgomery, Jamal Williams, Jeff Wilson. Don't love the Williams-Wilson. Do like Dave Montgomery a lot. So I think decent running back room. I think it's going to be a little fragile throughout the year, but we'll see how it goes.
Especially if Aaron Jones misses time, yeah.
Yeah, you may get the right level of balance of the Jamal and Jeff Wilson, where when Jamal goes, others come back, Jeff Wilson comes back. I'm not sure, but I don't want any part of the Miami basically backfield right now. So Wide receivers, Tyreek, Amon-Ra, Calvin Ridley. That's a fantastic
I mean,
top
that's a
three.
real fun combo.
Yeah.
Like that's a hard to get combo with the Tyreek and
Amon-Ra.
Amon-Ra.
100%. That's you've got to be drafting early on. Like because Amon-Ra already had to fall to the second pretty far for you, and then Calvin Ridley, that was when you were drafting him around 30. So that's a great top three. Sutton I like. Lazard is in danger. Mooney I have no confidence in. Jaden Reed I've been bullish on. Didn't do as much week one, but still time for that. Robert Woods ran good routes. Happy there. And Andrews Henry, I like that. Yeah. So I would just say
running back's the big question of this one, but the team feels like anytime you have these unique combos that fell to you that, at like a one timestamp of the contest, like that's just like one of your favorite teams in your portfolio. So shout out the title. Really fun looking team here.
Time out. And he got Mark Andrews.
Yeah. So he got 4th round Mark Andrews.
Wow.
Which was possible early. But remember, it was the Lamar Andrews, like right as the contest opened.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very unique team. That's a top 4 that is.
Or you know what he probably went? He probably went Andrews in the 3rd and Ridley in the 4th because Ridley on that first day, I got some Ridley in the 4th.
Okay.
My latest share of Ridley is like close to the 4-5 turn on opening day.
I'd say there's a decent chance he's the only one in the tournament that has that 4-person combo.
Yeah, which I mean feels nice. Shout out Titletown. All right, this other team, just a rando here from Saint Nick, 173 points.
Sorry, are we going to review one that's in light mode?
That was a mistake to take a light mode team.
You are a generous man.
We're showing this as a showcase of what not to do in future weeks, guys. When you show me your teams, post to my Discord or share it on the Twitter thread. Don't share light mode. But it's Tua, Tannehill, CJ Stroud. Puts a lot of stress on Tua, but I mean, Tua could do it. Jacobs, Aaron Jones, Gibson, Gainwell, Spears. Fine combo of running backs. 2 top guys. Gibson not looking great. Gainwell and Spears looking nice, though. Tyreek Smith, Ayuk, Flowers. Feel good about those 4. Nico, going to give you some weeks. Myers, strong guy. Osborne, kind of a 0. Tank Dell, probably like later season, goes with CJ Stroud. Kittle and Mayer, got an elite guy. He'll have better weeks, and we'll see what Mayer gives you.
I like this team. I think, though, this is a team that in 5 weeks we could look at and be like, shit, like that's like those injuries really got to you, and it's not looking good.
Yeah, let me ask you this: Ryan Tannehill, bench this season, yes or no?
So going into this week 1, I think I said that there was like a 30% chance that he would get benched at some point in the season. Maybe that's increased to like 40% based off the week 1 performance.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to jump into it here, but like Derrick Henry did not play that much. Let's just get to it. So what we're going to look at next is provided by Nate Janke of PFF. You can follow him on Twitter at PFF Nate Janke. He's the GOAT for usage report numbers, usually. We move these in the right order. But real quickly, we're going to go game by game from last week and just look at anything that sticks out to us from a snaps and route runs case, team by team. Kicking it off with Falcons versus Panthers. This is a game that the Falcons won pretty easily. I don't think the Panthers look terrible. Kyle Pitts, 20 routes run. London, 20 routes run. 1 in 3 targets each. Just kind of sad. Bijan Robinson, 18 routes run, 6 targets. Algier, 10 routes run, 3 targets. 10 carries for Bijan, 15 carries for Tyler Algier. Obviously, the running backs stick out here. Anything you want to say about the Falcons?
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with the passing game. Literally nothing.
Brock, this is a BBM for leaderboard show, so I'm not interested in looking at your puppy teams or your DK teams. Sorry for the show. Let's talk about Drake and Kyle Pitts real quick, because I'm big on I want a top-down approach for my pass game weapons. I want weapons from quarterbacks who I think are going to throw for a lot of yards. So historically, I've not drafted a lot of London. I've not drafted a lot of Kyle Pitts. I think better days will be ahead for these guys. what round do you think these guys would be drafted in if just today was the market, overreaction included in there?
Better rounds. I mean, better days literally have to be ahead for these guys because it was so bad.
Kyle Pitts looked sticked on one of his catches. One of his catches was cool,
That's
but
never been the problem for him.
yeah. And this isn't great. Like 31 snaps for Pitts, 26 for Jonnu Smith, 25 for McCole Pruitt. Like we don't love this.
Just win sprints after win sprints with some blocking in between. Drake London, he was a 4th rounder in
like 4 or 5.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think I looked at it because when I was doing that tweet
on Underdog, I think he was mostly a 4th round guy.
I was going to say, I think he was like the last pick of the 4th round. He was 47 or 48, but so that got him in the same one as DJ Moore and Drake London. I said was the worst pick. But
shout out St. Nick for that.
So where would I be drafting Drake London right now? Probably 8th round.
The market would react really swiftly to this game. Like, you don't have any just like if we saw this game and then the draft was there, I agree. 7th round, 8th round, like it's gross to say, but
yeah, mid 80s probably. It's ugly, but like, and if you're talking redraft, like, oh gosh, when are you ever going to feel comfortable starting?
You're not. Like Pitts is fine on like tight end premium where, you wonder how much of like he's going to get better with the knee injury.
You don't want Pitts on tight end premium. If anything, you want Pitts on regular tight end because you can have Hayden Hurst get you those receptions. You just want that big one play. And like, if you want to play Pitts in your redraft, it's fine because the majority of people aren't doing much and you maybe get those 3 spike weeks. But yeah.
The Panthers, I didn't watch, I watched Red Zone and watched this game super close. What sticks out to me is they got a ton of snaps. The running backs looked good, 21 routes run for Sanders, 13 for Chuba Hubbard, 18 and 9 carries each. So kind of like a 1A, 1B, a strong role for Hubbard. Hayden Hurst got a touchdown on 7 targets. The wide receivers were awful. And you hope Mingo gets better. Adam Thielen was like banged up and then played 70 snaps. So I don't know what's going on there. Terrace Marshall, 6 targets. Obviously, DJ Chark did not play. And I've always thought DJ Chark's been a little disrespected. It was like he was going to break out with Trevor that year, Trevor's rookie year, I think, where he broke his ankle. We'll see how he does when he comes back. I think Chenault almost got a touchdown.
I think DJ Chark also is one of those players that we kind of has like a Deshaun Jackson light situation where he's better for the team maybe than fantasy. And so if you look at Thielen, Terrace Marshall, Jonathan Mingo, like those aren't field stretchers. And so maybe that can actually help Bryce, even if it doesn't have that much in the actual box score. The Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, like I think it's going to be a 2-to-1 ratio that showed through this. And I think that kind of continues. I'm
just wondering, like, with like Sanders was like, I mean, he returned to practice, but both these guys were banged up a little bit and then returned. So I wonder how it moves along. But I mean, with the wide receivers being so bad, like you would think they're gonna just be more involved on the run game.
But it's just bad. That's
not a game to focus on a lot. Yeah, and you hope Mingo can break out late. Ravens, Zay Flowers stole the show. Bateman. You got to wonder how much of this is him being injured all offseason and then coming back. Played only 25 snaps compared to 54 for Flowers, 59 for OBJ. Only got 2 targets, though. I think better days will be there. Obviously, feel bad for J.K. Dobbins, who was looking real good until he hurt his Achilles, out for the year. Justice Hill, I think I would want over Gus Edwards, who got 2 goal line carries. I think it will be like Gus Edwards, usually in short yardage, and Hill will be that pass catching back, speed back. They're drawing so live to like add a free agent off the street, though, to make this annoying. Melvin Gordon's probably going to be pulled up. What's your read on the Ravens? And on the Texans side, I don't know.
Well,
Robert Wood got some targets, and Collins did too.
On the Ravens, I think like those Nelson Aguilar was just because they didn't want to give Bateman that kind of full workload coming off the injury. And so it seems pretty clear that like when Bateman was off the field, they brought Nelson Aguilar on. I don't think that's something that's going to sustain. So maybe there's a bright spot that, hey, he earned 3 targets on 17 routes run. So if you can double that, you're then looking at like 6 targets, Zay Flowers 10. Like I think that's kind of reasonable for what we should expect for Bateman going forward. I think it's very clear that Zay Flowers is the alpha in this offense. And honestly, I think that should scare people with Mark Andrews a little bit. If you looked at that chart that was going around on Twitter that showed the QB's first reads,
1.9 ADOT.
Oh my God. Zay,
we're going to pull up that chart.
Okay. Because I was going to say, here's the chart. And then like, here's Zay Flowers, just like all the way over.
Yeah, we'll pull up that chart after this.
Okay.
Here. Yeah, I mean, I think one question is, we got Brock's question here. Could Bateman snaps go down even more? I think your read on it is correct that like I would expect Bateman to ramp up. I will question though, like, we see 46 and 13 here for Likely and Kolar. Let's put Andrews at 50. I don't think does Likely go down to 13 or is he going to be closer to 24 where he is kind of sharing with maybe it's OBJ, maybe it's Bateman. I don't know.
Let's take in the new piece of information for Todd Monken offense. And this is what we've seen of their desire for Isaiah Likely. 46 snaps, 23 routes on 1 target. Like not much of a piece of that offense. No. I think we now need to reset our expectations for what is Likely's role in this offense. And so if Mark Andrews is going to come in, and I expect Mark Andrews to actually probably have a bit more than 46, I think I would see him closer, kind of that 50 plus, because not only can he run routes, he's also a pretty good blocker. And so in that situation, like, I don't think this really affects the Bateman situation. I think like it's just going to be mostly a 1-to-1 with Isaiah Likely. Also, are they going to pass more? Because this running game without Les Dobbins, I don't know, maybe.
By what week do you think Bateman will get to full snaps? Or do you think week 4, week 3, week 5?
My instinct would have been week 3. That like it's a gradual.
I mean, they game pretty handily, even though it was like close at points. They just didn't have to do a lot.
I'd be curious to know when those two players were getting their snaps. Was it like Bateman early and Aguilar later? Was it just? I would have expected it was split because you just kind of give them more rest in between series, and it was like a series here, series there. But yeah, they've got at Cincy, home Indy, at Cleveland. I think in the next couple weeks, like we see him ramped up.
Yeah, he doesn't really note on when it was, but yeah, on the Hill Edwards, that's just like a wait and see. I think like Justice Hill, I would go for and manage, but he could be a total trap where you're never like comfortable starting him. I think he's like more explosive than Edwards, who it's like
want to touch any of it.
We know who he is. The Texan side, I mean, Dalton Schultz, 62 snaps, 49 routes run, awesome, 4 targets. Not great. Nico Collins, 11 targets. Robert Woods, 10 targets. I thought Stroud did not look awful. Damian Pierce, 36 snaps, 22 routes run, 3 targets, 11 carries. Mike Boone played a lot and got 19 routes as well. So there was some murmurings about Damian Pierce being a 3-down back for the Texans. I was kind of big on Pierce because I thought the Texans O-line would be good, but then they lost like 4 dudes on the line. And so we'll see how this usage changes in, a little bit more of a competitive game where against the Colts could be that game next week. But anything you want to say on the Texans side?
No, I'm going to go with there. The Boone thing kind of came out of nowhere. My concern is that they were giving Pierce that 3rd down work in the preseason to see how it is, and that they made a determination that that's not going to be a major role for him. And if that's the case, like that's a little concerning for Damian Pierce where he's being drafted. And then, similar to what we see with Vegas, but a little bit to a lesser degree, Robert Woods, Nico Collins, 21 out of the 43 targets. That's like 48% or something. That's a concentrated, quite the concentration there. I think you can it's going to be hard from an efficiency standpoint. We've seen year over year rookie QBs do not really support wide receivers well from a fantasy perspective, but if it is concentrated like that, there's a chance. But I think CJ Stroud showed a lot of awful.
I didn't think Stroud looked awful for his first game. Schultz, I mean, you just got to have better days when you ran 49 routes. And I would assume Tank Dell and either Noah Brown or Robert Woods flips later in the season where, I mean, it's a great sign for Tank Dell. He at least played 37 snaps as a rookie. Moving on. Bengals Browns. I mean, this game was so ugly. It was bad weather. Joe Burrow did nothing. They got pretty much blown out. The most noteworthy thing for me on the Bengals is two things. One, T. Higgins, 7 targets, 0 catches. The other thing is the Samaje Perine role was pretty much just like split up between Travion and Chris Evans. Again, Travion was banged up, so we'll see how that changes. Irv Smith, 24 routes, 5 targets is what it is. Boyd, 32 routes, so he was locked in there. They drafted Charlie something and Andre Asovius. We see the Asovius got to play here. Irwin was like transactionally cut. You know when they like cut a veteran and then like keep him in the parking lot and sign him again, just to, like move a guy in IR. So don't know what that says for Irwin. Clearly, either T or Boyd are not going to be on the season in the future with them up against the cap and drafting these wide receivers. What are your takes away from the Bengals?
I don't want to think about anything. I think it's just got to be a throwaway game for the Bengals.
Are we worried about Joe Burrow's calf? Like, do we think he's going to be slow to start and be fine later, or what?
I think it was mostly rust. Like, I mean, I think, yes, the rust might be a Kate because of the injury. But like that weather combined with like shorter preseason and then even shorter preseason for him with the injury, maybe it's just some rust and such. But next week, who do the Bengals play?
Ravens.
They've got Baltimore Ravens. That should be they should be ready for that game. They're at home as well. 1 o'clock game. Hopefully weather's a little better, but
yeah, we'll see there.
On
the Brown side, I mean, Jerome Ford, 15 carries. He didn't really do anything with it, like 39 yards. 12 routes run. Nick Chubb, 12 routes run, 4 targets. That's pretty nice. Deshaun was awful as like a passer. Again, like the weather. I don't want to be harsh on Deshaun as a passer.
I know.
At the same breath say, forgive Joe Burrow, forgive Josh Allen, forgive Lamar for bad fantasy games where I think we just need to like see with Deshaun in other games. The wide receivers, pretty much what we expected, other than Amari Cooper only played 45 snaps compared to DPJ running 66.
He got hurt for a little.
Oh, did he? Okay. All right.
He had an injury that looked like it might have been a leg, but he slipped a little. So I don't know how he was out for a little bit there. Yeah. And then they probably just kind of took it easy on him.
Good to see Goodwin out there again after his offseason injury. He has sickle cell. And then Bryant Akins played a lot more than the other big thing from this game is they lost their right tackle, I think, which like I've always been Pollard over Chubb this season. I just think like Chubb doesn't catch passes. He just needs to be so efficient and score so many touchdowns. So we'll see how that hurts Chubb if losing a member of a key elite line, I think is going to hurt Chubb more than some other running backs.
Yeah, this is another one where I'd like to see when the Jerome Ford snaps came. What I do know is that I think it was on the first drive that Chubb had 4
Ask no more. This graph is telling you, I think.
Okay.
Jerome Ford is the light blue one. Nick Chubb is the dark blue. And running back.
This is downs, not when in the game. Because they were up so much that I could have seen maybe Jerome Ford kind of played the majority of the fourth quarter and such.
Jerome Ford 2-minute back, though. That's a little noteworthy.
It could be. But the Nick Chubb one, so he had 4 targets, 4 catches, and I think it was in the first drive. It was very early in the game. So I was like, damn, that's definitely interesting and noteworthy. We'll see if that happens, but then didn't get more after that. But also, they didn't need to. They were ahead the whole game. It was an ugly weather game, so I don't want to read too much into it. But yeah.
I think it was Jack Conklin. I don't know if he's out for the season or what it is, but I saw he was hurt. Moving on to the Jags. Trevor, they lit up the Colts the first half, and then I don't really know what happened. That game kind of got away with them. ETN, 56 snaps compared to Tank Bigsby's 15. Ridley was a grown man, 11 targets on 34 routes run. Zay Jones, 6 targets and caught a touchdown, 32 routes run, looked good. Kirk, only 2 targets on 24 routes run. I think better days has got to be ahead for him. It's noteworthy that they only really played these 3 wide receivers, as you mentioned, not Agnew and Tim Jones. Ingram, he'll have some days, 51 snaps. Luke Farrell, who Brent Strange was the guy they drafted this year. They did some 2 tight end stuff as well. Anything you want to say on the Jags?
The feeling that I kind of got was one of those which we see more in college where the Jags like, hey, here is our first drive. We already have our 10, 15 plays, whatever it is mapped out. Like, let's go for this. And then as the game kind of evolved, things kind of, Calvin Ridley had virtually no role in the second half, which was weird because they weren't they weren't like substantially ahead or anything. Noteworthy for me is that only 3 wide receivers saw a target, and this even affirms it even more that only 3 wide receivers really ran any routes. Agnew and Jones ran 5 combined. So this is where, like, we touched on it, but like I expect Kirk, Zay Jones, Calvin Ridley all to have some big games at different points. Ridley, the primary alpha, Zay Jones and Christian Kirk playing and not playing as much in 2 wide receiver sets. So that was a bit concerning. You can see his snaps at 43 versus the others. So that one's a bit more concerning, I think, for the Christian Kirk, but he's not going to be a 0, as you said earlier.
Yeah, he's going to have some games. Like maybe I'm bag defending here, but I think he's going to have some games. Obviously, Zay maybe could have been more expensive. I think ETN 30 routes run, like that's pretty nice. That's more than Christian Kirk. That's the same as Ingram. ETN clearly would be more valuable in drafts, I think, if done today. Maybe a 2-3 turn guy. On the Colts side, Richardson looked great, man. Real stoked for him. Deion Jackson looked awful, but Evan Hull is on the IR, who I drafted a lot of Evan Hull towards the late. He's going to miss 4 games. I think we might get Zach Moss back for this game. Kyle Granson was the tight end one with what's his face on IR. We'll see if he comes back and how that plays down. Pierce was bad. Josh Downs got 6 targets, which is like pretty nice for a 36 routes run. And Pittman, 10 targets, 46 routes, also housed that long touchdown, looked good. What do you want to say on the Colts?
All in the second half for Pittman. Pittman had 0 targets in the first half. That was a bit wonky. And so is that something like, are we going to expect that some games Pittman's only going to have like, a couple targets? Or was that hey, we realized our wrong very quickly? And like my guess is in the first half, Michael Pittman was playing the left-hand side of the field most part and just he wasn't thrown over there. So in the second half, I have to watch the tape. I don't know this. My guess is, but then in the second half, they're like, you know what? Hey, we need to get Michael Pittman on the right-hand side of the field because that's where Anthony Richardson is going to throw to. And then he got those 10 targets. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not really touching the running backs in this situation. Anthony Richardson, let's effing go. Looked fantastic. Shane Steichen just absolutely, what Steichen was able to do for that offense by just the low average at the target, the safe passes for Anthony Richardson, the one to the right, like that was most, appealing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm real excited about him. Do not want him to be taking garbage time hits, like he got banged up there. But I think he'll be fine. And a good sign that he 6 carries is what it's showing us here. And again, with like the running backs being so bad, that might be more.
Honestly, yeah, that honestly surprised me. Only 6 carries for 40 yards. Obviously got banged up at the end there, but we kind of think that like, hey, middle of the field, they start using some more design.
They got a defensive touchdown too, so that takes a drive away.
Yep, true.
They played really high pace too, which is good. Saints Titans. We're gonna move quick through this one here. Jamal got a lot of work, didn't do anything with it. Rashid Shaheed played 35 snaps compared to Thomas's 51 and Olave's 51. You think if Thomas goes down, I think Shaheed would get even more works on his 35 snaps, 25 routes, 6 targets compared to Michael Thomas's 7. Olave looks like the star that he was valued at in fantasy. Strong role from Juwan Johnson. Taysom Hill, 9 snaps, 3 routes, 3 carries. He got a target in the end zone too. I don't know if you saw this game. Saints, whatever. Titans side, man, they were pretty brutal. I think the big takeaway there is that Spears and Henry split workloads pretty much, or at least snaps. 10 routes for Henry, 20 for Spears, 15 carries for Henry, 3 for Spears. The wide receivers, Nick Westbrook-Akine, surprise, wide receiver 3. I think Kyle Phillips is still banged up there. Anything you want to say on this game?
Yeah, I think for the Titans, I can't believe how many people were still so staunchly defending their Derrick Henry bags. Like, I think the people who drafted Derrick Henry and like the old school kind of RB guys are the most just like dug in. And because if you can't see that, hey, when you were drafting Derrick Henry at the end of the second round, you were drafting him because of one of 2 things. Either one, you expected him to get the volume that he was projected for last year or on pace for 460 touches, or you were counting on he was going to increase his receiving load as he started doing last year. It is very clear that they have no plans to run him into the ground. And then when people are like, oh, that's a good thing, actually, because then he'll be healthy in the playoffs. Like, stop with the copium. Like, it's bananas. You knew what you were hoping for. Tyjae Spears has a legitimate role. Tyjae Spears literally played more snaps than him. Tyjae Spears is going to be the more pass-catching back. It is what it is. Accept it. Derrick Henry can still be a decent running back, but that upside that you were hoping for is completely gone. He has no chance, as long as Tyjae Spears is healthy, of being a top 3 running back. And that's really what you're hoping for when you're drafting someone in the second round.
Yeah, the third reason I was going to add, James said here, reason 3 for drafting Derrick Henry was his playoff schedule. I don't think that thesis was that strong because I thought the Texans defense, you got D'Amico Ryans from the 49ers. They drafted Will Anderson, I think his name is. Like, they improved that defense. This is not the Texans from last year. So we'll see how they hold out. Anything on Michael Thomas and Shaheed? Hopkins, 12 targets, didn't really do much with it. I didn't draft much Hopkins. Don't know how to feel there. 12 targets, obviously legit, but
a lot of targets. Unfortunately, they're bad throws. I think for the Saints, the most noteworthy for me was the Juwan Johnson. We heard it all offseason that Derek Carr loved him and running the same amount of routes basically as Chris Olave and Michael Thomas. That's really strong. So needle is up on him.
Yeah, for sure. Try to quickly get. This one will really go through the Commanders. Terry seems to be perfectly healthy. He dipped late in the season. 5 targets for him, 7 for Dotson. Curtis Samuel got 5 targets, only 1 carry. Diami Brown mixed in. There was questions of Cole Turner or Logan Thomas, so that made people just stop drafting Logan Thomas. He was the unquestioned tight end 1 there. Cole Turner barely played. We'll see if that, the good news on Cole Turner, 4 routes, 2 targets. The bad news, 10 snaps. So, and again, four routes. So we'll see how that changes. Brian Robinson, 43 compared to Gibson. Even on the routes run, Brian Robinson did catch that goal line target touchdown. And then on the Cardinals side, dudes played. Connor played a lot, didn't do much with it. Rondale Moore had an okay catch. Hollywood, 5 targets. Better days got to be ahead for him. Zach Ertz, 9 targets. That is not something I saw coming at all.
22 yards, I think it was.
It was 9 targets, 20 yards or something like that.
Yeah. Not Arizona is just a complete stay away until Kyler is back. For Washington, it concerned me that they spread the ball around so much. I don't really love seeing 29 targets on 71 snaps. From if you're interested in that passing game or receiving game. I'm hopeful that this was just a wonky game, but the fact that it was so close with Arizona, that's not a good sign for Washington.
Not a good sign.
Howell looked pretty bad the first half. He turned it around a little. He got a hard hit too. Maybe that had a roll.
He got a goal line touchdown, which helped him.
Yep.
Niners Steelers. What I'll say on this game is I saw on Twitter someone show maybe Kenny Pickett got concussed on the third play of scrimmage and they just didn't take him out, and that explains why he was so bad. I don't know about that. I never bought into Kenny Pickett. The quarterback had a great preseason, obviously. For their end, Najee and Jalen Warren pretty much split work. No one did much with it. Warren at least got 6 targets. Najee Harris only 6 carries. How's that dead zone workload working for everyone there? Allen Robinson, 8 targets. Deontay Johnson going to miss several weeks. So I think Calvin Austin's going to take that role. Pickens, man, I never really got the Pickens thing because he just doesn't separate. And when you're not a team that's going to throw for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns, again, we'll see if the concussion or whatnot, how that plays into it. But Niners looking ugly. The best thing I would say there is if you have run game pieces, they get the Seahawks who are real bad at D-tackle week 17. The Niners were lights out, full roll for Samuel, Ayuk, a little bit for Juwan. Kittle, pretty full roll for being banged up. And CMC, this was the CMC show. We barely saw Elijah Mitchell. I think those 10 snaps were in pure garbage time.
Yeah, and this was a game that there was lots of actual garbage time. So we could have seen Elijah Mitchell having a larger role. So for this,
and they didn't.
No, I know something that's and I see right there someone asking, I thought I just saw. Oh yeah, Brock asking, is this CMC usage going to stick? Oh yeah, someone's asking that too. But for that,
I don't like that this covers your face. I wish this was moved over here, but it is what it is.
But yeah. So I don't know, but it feels like he shouldn't have gotten this much usage in this game. If he would have only had 48 and Elijah Mitchell would have had 20, I would have been very happy with Christian McCaffrey's usage and been yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They were up a lot. So who knows? We'll see, but definitely positive. All these 49ers are going to have spike weeks. The offense is just too good. They've been my pick to win the Super Bowl, and I feel pretty strongly about that. And I think that's the biggest answer to the Steelers questions is what happened with the Steelers. You win against an elite defense. There are only maybe 3 or 4 defenses that I think qualify as the ones that can really disrupt the games this year. And that's probably the Cowboys. That's probably the 49ers. That's probably the Jets. I think those are the 3. I'm not including the Buffalo or Philly this year anymore, but so for those 3,
I think Philly after that.
I know. Well, and Philly, Philly last year was fantastic, but then they, guys got to get paid, go elsewhere, etc. But for Pittsburgh, I think what's noteworthy is the Pat Freiermuth. I've got a lot of Pat Freiermuth bags. Just really bullish on him. But if you look at the routes run, that snaps 32 versus Darnell Washington is 24. You don't want to see that. You want to see a little more usage out of Pat there. He did get the goal line or the red zone touchdown and another red zone look as well.
He got fucked up on the red zone catch. Yeah.
So he's still going to be like the primary, I think the primary target for them in the red zone, but I don't like seeing how much Darnell Washington played.
Yeah, and he didn't get any targets. I think he will get some in the future. Connor Hayward got 4. Anthony McFarland, I think, was their 2-minute drill back, which is not what we like to see with Warren. Maybe there was something weird going on there. On the CMC thing, my guess would be no. I don't think he's going to get this much work in blowouts anymore. I think it's legit. Shanahan probably does not like some member of the Steelers staff, and so was we're going to fuck him up with CMC this game. But we're going to get Mitchell. We're going to get Jordan Mason. We're going to get some of that in blowouts.
I just looked a little more into it. Pat Freiermuth did get hurt, was forced out of the game for a little. So that makes sense. And Freiermuth's absent. Darnell Washington and Connor Hayward got increased usage. That makes a little more sense for that.
But their O-line, the 2 things is the Steelers D is pretty legit. And so for the 49ers to be this good against a decent defensive line, pretty good sign. And then the Steelers O-line just overmatched. And so that's why I think we're going to get a lot of tight end blocking for them.
Yeah. And Brock makes a point. Maybe it was that Mitchell wasn't fully healthy, so they just felt better about the CMC. I think Mitchell's been back in health, but that's very possible because he had been hurt earlier in the offseason.
The next game, Bucks-Vikings, have people asking if the Vikings are going to trade Kirk Cousins midseason to the Jets, which I think is total wish casting for Jets bags. On the Bucks side, Rachaad White, 54 snaps, 21 routes run, 2 targets, 17 carries, did barely anything with it. Sean Tucker, a rookie in his first game, did a lot of work. I think that will go up.
Do you have a Rachaad White tweet you were going to say?
Yeah, well, we're going to get to the segment where we just look at tweets, but this one by Jake Tribby, per Fantasy Points, said, this is only 2 running backs earned 100% of their team's red zone snaps, and that was McCaffrey and White. Now, the difference is White as a team only got 7, compared to Mostert was 16. And CMC housed the long touchdown, so they didn't get a lot of red zone snaps. So that's the good end, is that he got 100% of the red zone work. The bad end is he was not productive going back to this game. Kade Allen, a ton of snaps. Mike Evans looked good. Trey Palmer's a guy I started mixing in at the end as I started taking a lot of Tutu, Hardy, Palmer teams just to get different on the back end with my wideouts. Think he's going to be a big ADOT guy. We'll see if Mike or Godwin gets traded midseason for these Bucks, but they won. And then on the Viking side, I think Addison will ramp up as time goes. Osborne played a lot. Expect that to be overtaking. Oliver's paid a lot to block. So, and Madison was kind of brutally bad, but maybe that was the line.
Rachaad White was good for negative 38 rushing yards over expectation. That is the 4th worst game since the beginning of last year. Just atrocious. Rachaad White is not a good running back, and if he's not going to be getting the receiving down work that we expected that we saw with Brady, it's just not going to work out well for him this year. If you look at the Vikings, it's crazy how many of their players end in son. Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Madison.
Analytics, guys. Analytics.
Then you got a cousin. So someone put a tweet out about this, but you got 1 cousin, you got 4 sons.
No. So someone on my this guy who keeps on doing these niche jokes is I asked about Justin Ross. I was like, who's going to victory lap Justin Ross? And he said, I faded Justin's. And he showed his Justin exposure. And it was like 0 Justin Fields, Justin Ross. But he said, but I'm really in on the Suns. And he showed like his Suns exposure. And it was like Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson. It was really good. Sammy, thanks for the super chat, man. If you rewind, this is from Nathan Janke at PFF here. So I'll just put this link for you in the chat to copy and paste on your end. But follow him on Twitter.
He does some great stuff. If I can give a shout out to our friends as well, another free resource that has been great. So Fantasy Life, Dwayne McFarland put out his utilization report. And so
we're going to get to them at the end.
Perfect access to his table. But that has a lot of really cool stuff that I've been using the past 24 hours. Yeah.
They're doing a lot of cool free work over at Fantasy Life, a company started by Matthew Barry and a lot of cool guys. Ian Harditz, Dwayne works there, Peter Overzet. Good group of people and others that I'm not mentioning. Anything else on the Viking side? I mean, Madison, a lot of workload, was not good. Got a lucky red zone touchdown.
I think the Bucs defensive line, as long as they stay healthy, has a really good run D. We've seen this in past years, but then they had some injuries as the year went on. So I think that's what really happened with this Minnesota. I think from a passing rate over expectation, Minnesota was the highest or second highest. And I think a lot of that is because of how good that Tampa run D was. And I think what was interesting is first half, Justin Jefferson had basically 150 yards. Tampa adapted in that second half and kind of shut him down for the most part. But overall, I think this is going to be a very, very pass-friendly, very, very lucrative for fantasy offense with the Vikings. And yeah, I I think Jordan Addison probably looked the best of any of the rookie wide receivers this week.
Got a huge bomb touchdown, 6 targets.
Yeah, Zay Flowers obviously looked great too, but like Jordan Addison, arrow is pointing upward. Those KJ Osborne snaps are not going to stay nearly as high as Addison moves up.
No, yeah. And I mean, Hawkinson didn't do a lot with it, but I mean, 8 targets, man. Like, better days got to be ahead for him. Trying to move through this quick so we can get through the rest of the segment. I'm going a little bit long on the show. Packers, I mean, no Christian Watson. That's unfortunate for me. I have a lot of Watson, real excited about him. Musgrave, 45 snaps, 23 routes. Pretty awesome there. Aaron Jones and Dylan split snaps, although Aaron Jones did pull his hamstring on that long touchdown run, so we'll see how that sticks with him.
Everyone's hammy.
Yeah, and he's kind of an older back too. And the Packers were weird where they were like, they wanted Jonathan Taylor. I don't know how you feel about that as Aaron Jones. Maybe that's more of an indictment of A.J. Dillon. And the Packers realizing that, like, I mean, this Packers team, pretty legit, man. Their defense is good. Their O-line is good. Jordan Love seems good. We'll see how they do against tougher competition. They got a pretty bad division, like defensive-wise, like the Vikings. Samari Toure played a little bit more than probably expected, and Malik Heath, but they didn't do much with it. They're probably out there to block.
For me, with the Jonathan Taylor situation with the Packers is, I guess you could read it as an indictment for their current players, but I think it's more likely a desire to run and have that be a core part of their offense and a way to protect Jordan Love. You know, you have a very strong offensive line. You really don't want to limit the exposure, limit the risks of Jordan Love. And so let me invest even more in that running game. And so once the Jonathan Taylor thing doesn't happen, I'm then far more bullish on the A.J. Dillon and the Aaron Jones. And that's why I have so much A.J. Dillon, just because that cost, I think, like, I know he looked bad. He was so inefficient this last game, but I think like the role and that team and the opportunity is going to be very valuable.
And the Bears, like, I mean, they signed Tremaine Edmonds from the Bills. Like, he's a legit run-stopping linebacker. I think their secondary may be bad for the Bears, but like maybe the front seven's okay. So like maybe better days ahead there. The Bears, offensive-wise, it looks like a 3-way split. A lot of Roshan's usage came in garbage time. I think he actually just like looks good though. So like I think he's going to overtake Foreman in the long run, and maybe Herbert. Claypool like might get cut, man. Like he was like half-assing out there. Mooney 7 targets, pretty nice there. Got a touchdown. Kmet 7 targets. A lot of snaps for him. What are your takeaways from the Bears?
Yeah, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be hard to really trust anyone in this offense. Yeah, I agree on the Roshan thing. This is very misleading because it did mostly come in garbage time. But yes, he looked good, so he can increase over time. But I think it's just going to be ugly. You can't trust anyone in this offense, probably besides Justin Fields.
And the other thing about Roshan is, I mean, the Bears might be in a lot of garbage time. So it's like if all he is garbage time, pass catching back, 7 targets, 18 routes run, not too bad. He's going to get that a lot of games.
Yeah.
Moving quickly through this, Raiders, really condensed offense. We kind of touched on this one. Big things for me, Michael Mayer. Split usage with Hooper, 9 routes run, 0 targets. That's got to change in other weeks. Some teams defend the tight end better than others. Hunter Renfrow, 13 snaps, 9 routes run, undraftable if this is his role going forward. Myers and Adams, super condensed. Jacobs, basically didn't leave the field. I don't think that means Zamir White's a bad pick, because if something does happen to Jacobs, I mean, this is elite usage for a running back. Talk to us about the Broncos, man. I didn't draft Broncos this year. I did not draft expensive Broncos. I drafted a little bit of Dulcich, who is now hurt. I drafted a little bit of P. Ryan. I drafted a little bit of Mims and Sutton, but not a lot of Judy until the end when he got hurt. Then I was starting to mix him in. And I was out of expensive Judy, and almost no Russ, who, I don't know. What's your takeaway from this game?
It's hard to say too much because, yes, missing Judy. Then Greg Dulcich got hurt pretty early in the game. So you're really just in that, when you're having Lil Jordan Humphrey, Brandon Johnson, Philip Dorsett getting snaps. Gosh.
Over Marvin Mims.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rookie situation. I always think that we're overconfident in the role when we see the talent from college, and that for some players it's just going to take longer, and it is what it is. Because Jaden Reed was the same situation where Jaden Reed should 100% be in there getting a ton of it, but he's still a rookie. The other players have been with the team, have a little more familiarity with the league and such. Javonte and Samaj, I expect this to be a pretty similar split going forward. Maybe I don't know. I just think they're going to basically play him the same. I think we think of it as Javonte has so much more talent, but I think Sean Payton thinks of it as just I've got 2 backs that are both very competent that I can trust, and I'm just going to use them both in different in the same situations.
And I never thought of Javonte as a Breece Hall talent. Breece Hall to me, breakaway runner. Javonte got a lot of targets with Russ, and so we'll see on these teams. This could be 2 bad teams that just played each other, and we'll see how they do against some better teams ahead. Dolphins, looked electric. Tua, really good. Waddle, only 5 targets. That's got to be better in future weeks. Berrios, 5 targets. River Craycraft, 5 targets. Durham Smythe, 7 targets. A legit tight end who, honestly, I did not draft a lot of, but looking like that's a miss by me. Mostert, pretty locked in usage there. A chain was a healthy scratch. Talk to us on the Chargers side, and anything you want to say on the Dolphins.
We talked about the Mike Williams one, but I think him getting those slot routes is really valuable for his role. If you look at the usage for this game,
he missed a quarter of the game too. I thought he was out for the game.
Yep. No, he was hurt for a decent amount. And then from a rushing wise, 5.9 yards per carry on the ground for Austin Eckler and Josh Kelly. It makes sense that they just continue to run the ball. Also, when your defense is getting torn up like they were, it makes sense also to kind of not slow the game down, but at least control the ball a bit more. And that's what they were able to do on the ground. I think this is still going to be an explosive offense going forward. Hope to see Quentin Johnston's role increase. I think it's just going to take some time.
It will.
Yeah.
Donald Parham played more than expected, maybe some of that was correlated with Mike being out. I don't think anyone expected Josh Kelly to basically split work with Eckler. That's pretty big for Kelly. And then just on the Dolphins side, 25 routes for Berrios, pretty nice. 33 for Smythe and 14 for Craycraft and 8 for Azukanama.
I think I can claim the largest Josh Kelly bags, so I'm pretty happy about that one. He was my kind of go-to late pick. I think and weekly winners, especially weekly winners. I think I'm at, what is it? I'm looking right now. 18% of Josh Kelly was scooping him up. I never understood why these other handcuffs were going, but not him when you were just so valuable. The Eckler situation and a new coach, a new offensive coordinator that we've seen has used 2 running backs in the past. Made sense that that Josh Kelly has elite handcuff role, and obviously played more than I even could have imagined.
That's a big market inefficiency we see year after year that I like to attack, where it's like I ask myself, who are the running backs going in the first, second, and third round, and who are their handcuffs? And oftentimes, we're not drafting their handcuff. Like you even saw when Jonathan Taylor was ruled out, people did not want to draft the Colts backup running back. They were legit going to be a starter, And I think with the Chargers, it was more of a question of, was it Kelly? Was it Spiller? And people just they didn't want to gamble a zero. And I'm of the mindset, gamble a zero. You're going to land on Spiller sometime. You're going to land on Kelly others.
There was nothing that showed us that it was Isaiah Spiller other than people who were still liking him from the draft, 2 years ago.
He had one good preseason carry that I remember.
Sure. There you go. But everything from the usage last year with Josh Kelly, the reports and the coaches, I don't know. The Isaiah Spiller, I feel like always came out of nowhere. I was literally never considering drafting him. But again, that's also why I was so high on Kelly. But yeah.
Yeah. On the Eagles, holding a big L at the moment with my massive Rashad Penny bags, I will say a couple things about Rashad Penny. One, some people said that he had the same injury that some other running back has had that zaps guys. And so we'll see if he ramps up over the course of the year. Maybe that's copium for me. On the other end, Gainwell banged up. We'll see how Thursday night game, how they're going to deploy Swift, or maybe Penny is active then. Maybe Gainwell's inactive. The wide receivers locked in usage. Goddard didn't get a lot of targets this game, but he will be fine in the future. Eagles pretty easy. Boston Scott got an annoying 8 snaps. Swift did nothing this game. Expecting that to be better in the future. Talk to us about the Patriots.
And so real quick, one thing there with the Rashad Penny, this might be confirmation for what you're saying as a pro, or it could be a con, but I think there's a chance that he's lost it and that he doesn't have that burst and speed anymore. And there were some plays in the preseason that he got to the second line and just didn't have it. I'm not a watch the tape kind of guy, but I think confirmation of what I saw with him being a healthy scratch, it could be injury related, but I just don't think he has that burst. And if he doesn't have that burst, then he's not actually that good of a running back.
Well, and the question is, to me, it's the Eagles are keeping him because they think that's going to return. Now, do they think that's going to return? If they thought it's going to return next year, I think they would IR him or pup him. If they think it's going to return this season, I think they keep him, right? So I don't know. Maybe he's just the emergency.
Not that good, but they can still play him, but he's not that good. Yeah.
I don't know. BBM2, Rashad Penny was a 0 for a large portion of the year until the end. So if that's all he is this year, that's all we need. But again, looking like a total 0 right now.
For the Patriots, because I've had a ton of people who are talking about the Ramondre situation, and they're using his raw volume to make an argument for why he looks really good. But
we're going to look at this tweet next.
Yeah, exactly. And first off, number one note, 80 snaps. They tied for the most snaps, offensive snaps this year, for this week.
Aided by a pick six touchdown that put them back on offense.
And so they ran a ton. There was 20 more snaps than they averaged last year. Last year, they were at bottom 5 on snaps. So to begin with, we should really be cutting down about 20% of whatever their actual volume was here for predictive for what we're expecting going forward. Then when we look at the actual split between Ramondre and Zeke, the concern for Ramondre is, does he lose high value touches? If Zeke is just used as a between the 20s as a rusher, that's awesome for Ramondre, and it's no concern. The concern is Zeke going to be used in the goal line, in the red zone? Is Zeke going to have a pass catching role? And those things, the answer has been yes. If you look here, we see Zeke 5 targets. Yes, fewer routes run, but still getting 5 targets for Zeke, that is a concern for Ramondre going forward. They
didn't get a red zone carry this game, right?
No, they did. I think they each had red zone usage. I looked this up, and it was the same red zone usage for each of them.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I thought they maybe just didn't get one this game because they scored kind of from far out. We see the Ramondre and Zeke thing differently. To me, I think Zeke potentially could fade over the course of the season. To me, it's really great. Ramondre, 35 routes, 6 targets. But Zeke, great usage too. 18 routes, 5 targets. So I think if there's a running back that's going to fade, it's Zeke. Maybe the Patriots are thinking, we'll save Ramondre a little bit for later season. It's a great sign for Ramondre that the Patriots were not an abject disaster on offense. They hung with the Eagles, and frankly, probably should have won this game after falling down 16-0. Kendrick Bourne, a guy I drafted a ton last year and just was in the doghouse with Patricia, I guess, was great this game. You got to feel great if you have some Kendrick Bourne out there. Wasn't drafted a lot. 54 routes, 11 targets. Devontae Parker was ruled out this game. Juju Smith-Schuster, man, like that, he might just be done. And Hunter Henry looking like a really solid late tight end. Mike Gesicki, not quite the same role. You looking something up here on the red zone?
Yes, I am. I'm looking, so trying to see if it applies. Okay. Ramondre had 2 attempts in the red zone. Zeke had 1.
Yeah, that's not a death blow if that's like what the ratio is.
No. Yeah. Trying to see. Okay, yeah, because I was looking at this. Where I'm looking right now is fantasy points data, and they break it off by zone concept, man gap concept, and things like that. But then also from 20 yards to go, so 2-1. But I think like the risk is, does Zeke have kind of those high value touches? I think this game showed. Now the arguments against is Ramondre was sick. Maybe that's why actually Ramondre has an increased role. But also Zeke is new to the team, so maybe Zeke's role actually increases as they're familiar. We can talk ourselves in circles here. I think it's just disingenuous for people to be like, no, this was a great. Okay, not disingenuous. If you just are going off 6 targets and his carries, then I completely get it. Like that looks really good, but I think it's important to go a little deeper and see there are some flags that we should be concerned about. It could be nothing. This could still be a great Ramondre year, but there's some things we should at least have a little concern and monitor.
I think his weekly ceiling is still intact, especially on a team that's actually going to score touchdowns this year compared to last. We'll see how it breaks down over the course of a season. Both points make sense to me. Ramondre was ill this week, and so we'll see how it is next week. On the other hand, exactly what you said, Zeke being new to the team, maybe that ramps up. Rams, Seahawks, Matthew Stafford looked great. Van Jefferson did not. Tutu and Puka looked good. We kind of talked about this already. Tyler Higbee played a lot, didn't do a lot with it. Kyron Williams, 53 snaps. Cam Akers, 28. But like all of this usage for Cam Akers was in garbage time. I think Cam Akers had like 3 snaps at halftime. On the Seahawks end, Ken Walker looked good. Charbonnet barely played. I expect that to ramp up over the season. Noah Fant, pretty much not draftable if it's going to be a 3-way split with their tight ends. JSN didn't look great, didn't do much, got 5 targets at least. Seahawks this was like a tale 2 halves where they were fine in the first half and then they lost both their offensive tackles and then looked not good at all. Any takeaways on this? I think it's the last game before Bills Jets.
I mean, Stafford looked fantastic.
Real good.
That was just really impressive. I don't understand what happened to the Seahawks. They had 0 turnovers. They just couldn't get first down.
It was their tackles, man. Like once they lost those tackles, they struggled.
Yeah. So brighter days ahead for them. I'm hopeful when JSN's actually, fully healthy, playing more snaps and stuff. But
yeah, he had a cast on, not ideal.
Yeah, Rams though looked really, really good. That was probably the most surprising thing for the week for me.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see how. I mean, the big question with Stafford is how's he going to hold up? How's the O-line going to hold up? And we'll see because the Seahawks defense not the most challenging. Sunday night football game, Giants Cowboys. Hard to take anything away from this game, man. Like such a weird defensive blowout. The Giants were terrible. No one caught
not even
any ball.
Anything there. Yeah.
I
mean, Cowboys defense is fantastic. They're going to cause trouble to a lot of offensive lines.
I don't know if Daniel Bellinger is going to play 44 snaps each week. He is a guy I drafted somewhat in the late rounds. They might just be playing a lot of 2 tight end, or Waller was banged up with the hamstring, so we'll see how that ramps up. The wideouts for them were Slayton, Campbell, and Hodgins as expected. Hyatt played, dropped the ball. Cowboys, not a lot of takeaway here. Tony Pollard looked real good. Dowdle got some work. Deuce Vaughn got some garbage time work. He was in there 1 snap. All the tight ends played. Yeah. Real quick, last game, Jets, Bills. Bills with a heartbreaking loss where, I mean, this loss just falls on Josh Allen's shoulders. Like, it kind of seemed to me like he was disrespecting the Jets, trying to just kind of like pad stats rather than taking what is available. On the Bills side, I mean, Kincaid and Knox, 55 and 58 snaps, 39, 38 routes, 4 targets each. Again, from the tape, what stood out to me is Kincaid, who had a short ADOT, as we talked about, but he was like streaking open in the field. Cook, a locked-in usage, 25 routes, 6 targets. Better days will be ahead for him. Gabe Davis was not great. Hardy, I think Hardy took a weird hit in the game, and I'm wondering if he got hurt because like all his usage came early. He was like catching passes out of the backfield, and then he didn't really play anymore. But like Hardy, Sherfield, and Shakir both like splitting wide receiver 3 duties. Not great, especially when a tight end is playing over them in 12. And then on the Jets side, Breece Hall looked real good. Just sad for Jets fans and Rodgers, man. And then Conklin and Uzuma's playing more than people I think thought.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets, it's just going to be hard to want to start any of the pass catchers until they maybe make a trade for a veteran or something or sign a veteran. Breece Hall just looked fantastic.
So good.
Yeah.
Like 100 yards on 2 carries.
Their team is still going to be competitive just from how good that defense is. And I still think those running backs can kind of still put up decent games. On the Bills side, maybe you're right about Hardy, but I still feel like he was back there for like kick returns and stuff. I think what's interesting,
kick returner and like slot gadgety. Like
no, but I'm saying if he got hurt, like I feel like he still was back there, but like also,
yeah, good point.
Would we have seen other wide receivers with increased snap counts if it was replacing him? It may have just been like, hey, this is going to be Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid out there on every play and running this 11.5 that they have. Yeah, and I know like we're not happy with the results for Knox or Kincaid, but I think where they were being drafted, as I mentioned earlier, like it was promising usage for both of them.
I think we can officially kill the narrative that rookie tight ends can't produce because while Kincaid, Laporta, nor Musgrave had a huge game, all of them had a lot of opportunity as far as snaps and routes run, which is like usually the big thing for rookie tight ends. I think the Bills are going to be a situational team where against the Jets particularly, they want to attack the middle of the field. So 12 personnel makes sense for that. We'll see if that changes based on opponent. But it's going to be a big part of, they were doing 12 personnel in the 2-minute drill.
Yeah. And you've touched on this with your rookie tight end aspect. And I think the key is like it often just becomes summarized as rookie tight ends can't produce. But the real is that rookie tight ends, it's very difficult for them to see the field early in their career in that first year. Usually that's because when you have an Austin Hooper situation, it's a difficult role in a tight end position. There's a lot of things you got to be paying attention to, the blocking aspect. And so you just trust someone like Austin Hooper. This is the unique year where there's clear roles, clear opportunities for these players. And it's always been once they have the opportunity, they can produce. We saw that late in the season, just usually takes time. But Musgrave, he's going to have that clear opportunity. Dalton Kincaid's going to have that clear opportunity. Laporta as well, like so forth.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, we didn't do Lions, Chiefs. Real quick, we'll just I think Gibbs looked real good. He's going to get more work over the season. And Montgomery's going to be fine too. Next segment, we're going to do some rapid fire tweets. We're going a little bit longer than I thought, so I hope Justin's okay with this. Rapid fire tweets, and then we'll get out with a look ahead at week 2. Justin, of course, going to be our first tweet here. He put out a tweet of, now that week 1 has concluded, here are the worst picks of each round. We talked about Ramondre. I don't exactly agree with it, but I don't think anyone really flopped from round 3. His round 1 was Cooper Kupp, makes sense. Round 2, Derrick Henry makes sense. Ramondre, could be Justin Fields, could be Debo, could be DJ Moore, depending on when you drafted.
Let me give my process real quick. So, because I saw someone else was making a joke earlier, like this was basically me just defending my bags. Well, I don't think it was defending bags, but my input and my evaluation.
You didn't draft a lot of Ramondre, but it's not bag defending.
Well, so that's what I'm saying is like my evaluation of these players still comes into play when I'm saying whether or not they're good or bad picks. Like, obviously, this is my take. If I didn't think that Ramondre was a good third rounder to begin with, then he's already at a more difficult starting spot. And so obviously, And a lot of the names you just read, like also people, I use like Underdog ADP to end the season, and DJ Moore wasn't a third rounder. Justin Fields wasn't a third rounder. Like you have to look at like who these actually were. Right. Yeah. So, But I gave my Ramondre. Through our conversations, we gave the Derrick Henry and the Ramondre conversation. So go on for the others. Yeah.
Yeah, London, I mean, makes sense. I think better days will be ahead for Pierce, but fair. J.K. Dobbins, he got hurt, so it's like it's not a bad process pick, but like he's a bad player to have. Cam Akers,
Yeah, I'm not saying that Dobbins or Rodgers were bad process picks. This is just
yeah. Swift makes sense. We'll see. I mean, Swift could light up the Vikings, so we'll see what happens there. But I think Tony will have better days. He at least got a lot of targets. I didn't draft a lot of him, but Rodgers got hurt.
The Tony should have been Sky Moore. I'm willing to agree with that. I think
I'm Tony over Sky.
I think, to be honest, I think Sky Moore was actually a round 8 guy, and I thought DeAndre Swift was worse, but maybe that was Sky Moore. Also, I did this mostly before last night's game, and then I swapped in the Rodgers, so maybe Garrett Wilson should have been that round 2 one instead of Henry. I'm willing to buy that too. But yeah.
Closing it out, Rashad Penny, fair. Van Jefferson, yep. Cole Kmet. I mean, he got a lot of work, but bad game. Hodgins, we'll see when they don't play the Cowboys. Jeff Wilson hurt. I think he could be a late round hammer again. Renfro barely played, looking like a terrible pick. Desmond Ridder, yeah, likely, sure. And if you want to fight with Justin, go on his Twitter at Justin Herzig and jump in this thread.
There you go. I'll do one. The Cole Kmet, I'm just so low on to begin with. I thought it was a bad pick. The Wilson, even if he does come back, I don't want any part of that running back backfield. I mean, they don't have any desire to run. And so now you're telling me there's going to be a 3-headed backfield. Just no thanks.
He could be leveraged off of Tyreek, but like maybe you're like victory lapping that and then Tyreek drops 50 again. So it's like, moving on to tweets I saw around the industry. If you guys want to just drop these in my Discord, if you see any cool ones, this is from Ryan Heath, who works with Fantasy Points, I believe. QBL Ryan on Twitter. This is an alpha receiver chart, and it shows you on the left-hand axis here is air yard share. On the right-hand axis is first read target share. So Fantasy Points got some really cool data to work with. And basically, wide receivers in the right half are typically going to be better for fantasy over the long run. And so you see guys like Puka Nacua here, who is a first read target share on over 40% of Stafford's passes. A.J. Brown as well. A.J. Brown also has the air yards to back it up. Air yards are just literally how far are you throwing the ball in the air when you're targeted. And so any names that stick out for you here, Justin, either on the low end, you see guys like Treylon Burks, Dallas Goedert, K. Dotton, a bunch of tight ends. Guys like A.J. Brown, Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Devontae Adams, Tyreek, like names we know. Kind of noteworthy that Puka Nacua and Tutu are in this quadrant.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about it from a process wise, like first read is probably in a small sample, one game, I care more about first read than air yards probably, just because I'm thinking through like air yards is going to normalize across a player's career. First read target share can usually be time boxed to a specific season or even a subset of games because that's what they're kind of scheming towards. So if I'm thinking about what's going to be more predictive going forward, or what's more kind of important is that first read target share because we can get a better idea of what their air yards are looking at historicals. So just looking at this, like I think Devonta Smith actually is kind of interesting when we think about comparative to A.J. Brown, like that he's got like, where on that chart he is, but A.J. Brown's still all.
It's noticeable that both are above 40%.
It's crazy. Yeah, right.
It's just so condensed.
Mike Evans. So Mike Evans had, I think, a 32% kind of target share in the game. And so I think it's, given a new quarterback, we're unsure of who's going to be the most valuable target there. And it's pretty clear that Mike Evans, I think he's going to be a pretty good value from drafts this year.
Yeah, his game seems to mesh better with Baker. We'll see how. Nico Collins, shout out Nico Collins here. Jamar Chase will be better. And Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz showing up in the upper right-hand quadrant. Did nothing with it, but over 30% first read target share.
Also, look at Chris Godwin. Look how low he is on this chart. Like that's not great. The gap between Godwin and Evans. To the right. You were close. 0.3.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right there.
Not great on air yards. At least he's like, getting targeted a little bit.
Yeah, no, the air yards is what I'm saying. The gap between him and Mike Evans in air yards, if you look at the names that are around him, it's basically tight ends. Yeah.
Yeah, not great. Shout out Ryan for that chart. He does a lot of cool charts. TJ Hernandez, intended air yards per pass attempt, highest. Carr, Tua, Love, and Watson. I think Carr is a byproduct of playing the Titans. Mahomes, 9.7. Lowest. Fields, 2.6. Ritter and Daniel Jones, 3.5. Zach Wilson, 3.7. Russell Wilson, 4.0. I mean, Russell Wilson on this list is not great. Pretty great for Love to be on the high end here.
I'll give Russell credit because again, no Judy and Dulcich came out pretty early on, and like we knew those guys he was throwing to were tough. So like that is what it is, kind of situation. And he threw to both of his running backs a decent amount, so that impacts it from a air yards. Fields 2.6. They're not letting him rip it, and whether they should or not, I don't know, but. Yeah,
I mean, they need to. They're going to lose anyways. Let them develop or cut them, move on. Last chart that I'm going to do with Justin, and then going to take a quick break and say goodbye to Justin because it's going on 2 hours, and I'm going to finish out the last end of the segment, which will be me reviewing the last 4 tweets and looking at week 2 and doing a battle royale before we get out of here. Thank you, Justin, for your time. This tweet is by Chris Weck of Fantasy Points. He put a tweet of how defenses allowed receiving points based on alignment. And so we look at this image. The maroon color is outer wide receiver. The blue color is slot wide receiver points. One is inline tight end for the red. Purple is split out tight ends. And yellow is for running back. So a 1 week sample, not too meaningful, but this is a chart to look at over time to see how teams are choosing to attack certain defenses. We see the Tyreek effect here against the Chargers, allowing 45 fantasy points or more here. Anything sticking out to you about any team, really?
In week 1, this is more indicative of the opponent than the defense. The Chargers that outside because you had Tyreek Hill and what Tyreek Hill was able to do. This is an interesting chart. I would say come week 3, week 4 is where it probably becomes a bit more valuable, but I think it's far more representative of what their opponent did.
Something that I think will stick is the Titans giving up a lot of points to outside wide receivers. Their secondary is bad. All right, Justin, thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to take a bathroom break, finish out the last tweets here, finish out the Battle Royale. First, Justin, tell the people where they can find your great work. I know that you're doing a pod, an in-season pod with DK. You got work with ETR. Tell the people.
Yeah, just Twitter at Justin Herzig. But no, I'd really appreciate it. So I have launched in partnership with DraftKings, a new podcast that's called the DraftKings Football Show. If you search in podcast stores, just search my name, Justin Herzig, and DraftKings, and it should show up. But twice a week, one Sunday night or Monday morning, I'll be doing like a rapid reactions, recapping of the week. And then Thursday, I'll be doing a bit more forward looking, kind of which games to attack and what I'm thinking through for the kind of DFS, the best ball aspects, some rainmakers, anything DraftKings, any kind of fantasy football related. But would really appreciate, go ahead, subscribe to that and listen, or at least give it a chance. Liam, cheers. Thanks for having me on. When are you?
Yeah, man, appreciate your insights. Thanks, man. It was fun going through this with you. This was the inaugural show, so you really set the tone for how it should go week 1, and you were great, man.
Appreciate it. When are you? Now that you've got what season started, you got the website still in process. When are you moving back to my neck of the woods?
It was get this down and then beat your ass in pickleball is next on the docket. So we'll have to report back on the Justin versus Liam battles in the pickleball streets. Goodbye to Justin, and I'll be right back, guys. Gonna take a piss, refill my water, and finish out this week 1 show with you guys.
Awesome.
Peace,
Thanks, chat.
Justin.
Thanks, Liam. Later.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for everyone for riding out this show with me. Not going to be too much longer. Let me get the screen back in here. Not going to be too much longer on this lovely day here. Moving on to some tweets I saw around the industry. We just did the Ryan one. Yeah, this one from Jake Tribby. We touched on this below, but it's running backs and what percent of the red zone work they got from their team. And so you can see CMC coming in here at 100%, Rachaad White at 100%, which is noteworthy. Rachaad White, not good, but this is like pretty strong usage. Mostert, real high. Deion Jackson, real high. That's one to monitor with Zach Moss. Saquon up here, Madison up here. Kyron Williams, 80%. And again, Cam Akers was taking some of that in garbage time. Jamal Williams, 75%. Ramondre Stevenson, 73%, which I'm not with Justin on Ramondre being a bad pick. Again, I drafted a lot of Ramondre in best ball. He did not, so we'll see how that plays out. Algier getting 70% snaps in the red zone. Bit noteworthy. So thank you, Jake, for that. One tweet from Ian Harditz of Fantasy Life, who we talked about earlier, is this is from his annual Yeesh report, where these are players who were tackled at the 1 yard line and did not score on the same drive in week 1. So these are guys who you could expect to positively regress. This was like Amon-Ra last year when Jamal Williams got all his touchdowns. Anthony Richardson made the list. Matthew Stafford made the list. Jimmy G made the list. So all these guys could have had another rushing touchdown. Austin Eckler, who could have had a much bigger game. A.J. Dillon, who could have had a touchdown. Kyron Williams, who could have had an even bigger game than he did. And Deion Jackson could have had a bigger game. Tyreek, for as big of a game as he had, could have had an even bigger game. Keenan, Puka Nacua could have had an even bigger game than he did. And Tony. So you can check out Ian, and he puts that on his site. Last tweet we're going to go through here is from Dwayne McFarland, also of Fantasy Life. And this is the Ravens running back utilization after J.K. Dobbins' injury. So for those wondering how it's going to play out there, Hill had 41% of the snaps. Edwards had 38. Hill got 41% of the attempts. Edwards 47. Hill ran 33% of the routes. Edwards 27. He ends with Hill seems to be the favorite for fantasy waivers, but Edwards should be in the mix and has been the better player over his career. I'm more Hill there than Edwards. I think Edwards is who he is, but we'll see how that plays out. Moving on to our last bit of the show here, a look ahead to week 2 of the NFL, and we're going to end with drafting a battle royale. So week 2 of the NFL kicks off with Vikings-Eagles, Ravens-Bengals. Vikings-Eagles, got to be excited for Eagles pieces against this Vikings D. Ravens-Bengals, Zay Flowers and Jamar Chase type game. Seahawks-Lions, an exciting game where I think the Lions defense is better than people think. Seahawks missing some tackles there, so we'll see if they are back. I think people are going to think this is going to shoot out, but we'll see how the Seahawks offense does. Colts-Texans, fun division game. Gonna be real excited to see what Anthony Richardson can do against the Texans after Lamar, frankly, didn't do a lot in the fantasy department. Bucks, Bears, maybe Bucks can get something going in the air. And, if Rachaad White is bad against the Bears, that's not great. Chiefs, Jaguars, this game could shoot out. I think the Jags could win this game, which would be the Chiefs starting 0-2. So we'll see how this game plays out. Chiefs did sign Chris Jones to play their D tackle, so he is back. I don't know if Kelsey's playing. I assume he is, but I don't know. Packers, Falcons. It's going to be a slugfest. Going to be interested to see how the Packers move the ball in the air against the Falcons, where they passed at will against the Bears. Are they going to be able to do that against the Falcons, who have a better defense? Bills, Raiders. Bills should absolutely destroy the Raiders. We'll see how this game goes. It is at home for Buffalo, so get right spot for them. Real bad if Buffalo loses this one. Chargers, Titans. Again, I would be wanting, this seems like a Mike Williams get right spot where Titans secondary, they can be beat deep. This has Mike Williams written all over it. The only thing that gives me pause though is he had that head injury. I don't know what that was. I'm assuming he's fine because he returned, but we'll see if there's any hangover from that. 49ers Rams, a division game where 49ers should move the ball pretty much at will, but what's going to happen on the Rams end is really what's going to be more exciting, where we saw the Rams move the ball against the Seahawks. Are they going to be able to do the same thing against this Niners defense? Giants Cardinals. I saw some people wanting to play like Cardinals D and whatnot. I think that was more a byproduct of the Giants playing the Cowboys. This feels like a get-right spot for the Giants, and it's trouble if it is not. Probably Darren Waller can have a good game here if he's healthy. Cowboys, Jets, defensive slugfest. We'll see who's playing quarterback for them. I meant to ask Justin who he thinks the quarterback will be. Obviously, Zach Wilson in the meantime, but maybe they trade for Trey Lance, If it's me, and I know that Zach Wilson is bad, I'd rather gamble and have Trey Lance show me that he's bad, although maybe he already has. Cowboys, going to be interested to see how the Cowboys move the ball against this Jets defense, where we might look back on week 1 with the Bills and be like, no one's been good against this Jets D. Although Josh was especially boneheaded in some of his plays there. Commanders, Broncos, I expect the Commanders to win this game. I think this going to be interested to see how Brian Robinson versus Antonio Gibson breaks down. I think B-Rob could have a good game here. Dolphins, Patriots, another really interesting game. That is Sunday night. That's going to be exciting. We just saw the Dolphins light up this Chargers D. Is that the Chargers? Is that the Dolphins? It's obviously a mix of both. Let's see how the Patriots do against the Dolphins after almost beating the Eagles. Not an easy start to the season for the Patriots. Saints, Panthers, boring game. Saints should win. They should be able to move the ball on the ground. They should be able to move the ball in the air. Browns, Steelers. Let's see how, this is a Monday night doubleheader. 2 boring games for that. We'll see how this division game goes. And that brings us to the last moment of the show, guys. We're jumping in this $10 battle royale. It is $50,000 to first place this week. It has filled, so thank you guys there. A little bit of lay of the land for me. I plan to do a pick'em show I plan on doing a pick'em show on Underdog, just going through the overs and unders. Had a pick'em for Monday Night Football where 2 of the 3 legs hit. Unfortunately, one of the legs was Garrett Wilson over yards, which I think that one would have smashed if Rodgers was healthy that game. Of course, he was not. And so how did my Miami teams do? I did not get a team to Miami already. You would have heard about that. Interesting that Underdog changed the dog bowl this week to a $50 buy-in instead of, I think it was 10. And I think that makes sense, where I think it's just like it competes too much with the battle royales from a price point to be $10. So make it a little bit higher stakes, make the field much smaller, 2,600 entrants instead of 13,000. And you're less likely to probably eat overlay, where you're just going to get some higher volume guys to put some more entrants in this. And obviously easier to fill a 2,600 size contest instead of a 13,000. And it's a good sign for Battle Royales, which they're going 50K to first this week. I think they could go 100K to first and really take their eyes at DraftKings and trying to topple a little bit of DFS, because I think to the average person out there, these are more winnable contests than DFS tournaments, which are, a lot of supercomputers, a lot of sims there. The format for this, if you're confused, is it's the main slate games only. 1 QB, 1 running back, 2 wideouts, 1 flex, 1 tight end. Going to take Calvin Ridley, one of the few elite wide receiver options on this slate. Would have felt great to get Diggs. I think my wide receiver rankings this week goes like Diggs 1 against the Raiders, Chase 2, just with the questions of Joe Burrow against the Ravens. Maybe Ridley 3 against Kansas City, and then Amon-Ra 4. Oh, is there a $5 and $10 battle royale too? Ah, there's a mini royale for $5 with 10K to first. So if you'd rather do more teams, you could go that option. I think I just answered this one, Adam. Why is the dog bowl $50? Probably to fill the contest easier. Wow. Josh Allen, to get him as my quarterback feels great on a slate that doesn't have a ton of elite quarterbacks, especially where the Jets defense, man, is a world difference against the Raiders. So I think a Josh Allen get right spot makes sense. Feel good about the start. We got Josh. We got Calvin Ridley. Hope you guys enjoyed this show. Gonna have a rotating guest each week. So this week it was Justin. Next week, we'll see who it is. Obviously gonna have Pat on one week. Gonna hit up Pete one week. Davis. We'll have them all. If you've not already subscribed to the channel, please do. I'm on the road to 5K subscribers. I took week 1 off from a content perspective. I think I'll be making more content for week 2. This is going to be a show I do each week. Going to do a pick'em show each week. Think I might do a just like a DFS type, like look at the games, the players we like. I got a lot right in week 1 for daily fantasy, where I had a lot of Shaheed, had a lot of Ayuk, just didn't have enough Tyreek Eckler minis to really bring it home. All right, we're going to go with the ETN and Ridley mini here, where I think both can get there. 20 points from ETN, 20 points for Ridley. That can be enough on a half-point PPR site. 100 yards and a touchdown for Ridley, same for ETN. Again, if you have not joined my Discord, the link to do that is in the YouTube description below. I mean, we're just going to reward Ayuk, man. We're just taking all the players who did good last week, except for Josh Allen. Could work. But yeah, if you haven't joined my Discord, make sure you do that. That's where you're going to be able to interact with the great community. You're going to be able to post your highest scoring Best Ball Mania 4 teams to have a shot of them being pulled up on stream, like I did with the 3 community submissions. So make sure you join the Discord, a vibrant community there, to celebrate your wins, bemoan your losses. I know some people asked for the good vibe flute earlier. Let me find it on my desk here, and I'll play you guys this as we wind down this nightly show. Week 1 is in the books. Week 2 is soon upon us. Best Ball at night. We're working on that. I hit up some of my friends that, make DJ and make sounds and whatnot. And I said, yo, you got to send me a 30-second clip for my intro. So I'm going to try to upgrade that. Dude, the flute really is too good, man. Some other things I made in my clay class that just happened to be handy. This is kind of a handle. Not much of a whistle. I showed you guys my other whistle. That one's kind of brutal. No one worth risking not getting Josh Allen stacked with Kincaid. So we're going to do that. We're going to do the bounce back to Kincaid. I don't think Kincaid will be drafted at 100% of teams. Probably shouldn't be. But, when you take Josh, getting a stacking partner makes sense. So I really like how this team has turned out. Someone like Mike Evans makes sense for a last pick here. Not very I'm not like, if I wanted to scroll and go more off the board, I'd take Gabe Davis or I'd take Puka Nacua as a bring back against Ayuk, but we're just going to go with Big Mike here. 10 targets, 6 catches, 66 yards, a touchdown. Half point PPR, that could be enough, and they get the not great Bears secondary. So that closes out my team here. Josh Allen, ETN, Ridley, Ayuk, Mike Evans, and Kincaid. And if we remember the tweet I pulled up at the starter show, the wide receivers scored more than the running backs this year as far as the later options here. So we'll see if that holds true for this week as far as should you go to running backs, should you go to wide receivers. All right, guys, we're over the 2-hour mark here. That's going to end week 1 of the weekly review show. If for some reason you are not up and running on Underdog Fantasy, promo code Chesley will get you a $100 deposit match. Have a great day, guys. Appreciate all subscribers, everyone who joins the Discord, all comments in the YouTube description, in the YouTube comments below. Have a great night. Looking forward to a great week 2. Peace.